What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NBA Deeper Dive presented by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, closing out the work week with a 9-game slate. I'm Dave Loughran at Loughy_D. Joining me is Greg Ehrenberg at G Ehrenberg DFS, in place once again of Adam Scher, who remains under the weather but also alive. So that's good. Greg, what's happening, brother?
Yeah, and I've been doing the injury report by myself, and awful week for the injury report because every single day, I even try to wait. I give like a 5-minute buffer after the 1:30 injury report comes out, and it just doesn't matter. No matter what I do, instant like massive news comes out right afterwards. So this afternoon, I put it out. James Harden gets ruled out like as it gets uploaded to YouTube. Yep. Then the Portland Trailblazers, the trade happened. So it's been unavoidable. But the good news, we have the other content here. We've got the deep dive live before lock to talk about all the news that we weren't able to talk about earlier.
You think Adam's faking it?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So I have two theories. Number one is he's just found an out of work, which would be par for the course. The other one, he got COVID the exact same day as Domantas Sabonis. They're both on vacation at the same time. I think there might have been a little tongue kissing going on, and they both got sick at the same time. Just a rumor, just a theory.
Oh man, we'll have to approach him about that one. I know he's not faking it because he has the exact same symptoms that I had. I mean, identical through and through, same timeline. I mean, this guy didn't take off any work for it, but yeah.
Did you get the leg aches too?
The leg aches. It started with a dry cough. It was a bad cold. Like it was definitely real lethargy, was tired, and everything. But these guys were actually, I bet the people that watch this show remember the worst part for me, other than just being tired and everything and having to like tell Tyler to take me off the screen every time I'm not on it so I could cough, was like my brain wouldn't work. It wouldn't function well. And not to say it does normally, but it was even worse, right? Like I couldn't recall names. I couldn't remember things. That was the kind of weird part that you're like, yeah, that's kind of strange.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's probably related to, people losing sense of smell or sense of taste, which is really weird. I guess just messing with your nervous system.
Could have been. Dana Lodian says, nice. I love when Norm Macdonald does a deeper dive. I don't know if he was referring to you or me, but that's a great compliment for either of us.
It is for somebody.
It is. It's a compliment for one or the other. Anyway, happy to have you guys with us. We got 1,000 people in here already. Beautiful stuff. 1,100. So let's get those likes to over 200. We're 175, 25 to go. If you forgot to do so when you jumped in right away, that's cool. You can atone for your sins right now and you'll be forgiven. We'll just forget all about it. And thank you for it, of course. And subscribe to the channel too. And if you want to join the channel too, get the custom emojis, the free super chats each month, those sweet badges, and of course, priority access to all of the questions and comments you might have, along with our premium Discord members. Just hit that join now down below if you want to. If you don't want to, that's cool too. But we'd love to have you part of the team here at Awesemo. All right. Let's make it happen, man. We have 9 games, less than an hour to do so. I think we can rip through a couple of these. First question I always ask Adam when we do this deeper dive, and I asked Rinpack yesterday, from an overall strategy approach, are we looking more stars and scrubs today with the injuries that we're getting? Can you go balanced? Can you pay up for the Jokic's and the Embiids tonight easily? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, we have so many players that are still on the injury report that I assume there's going to be a lot of value that opens up. I don't know exactly who those players are going to be right now. There's going to be some that we're going to be able to highlight, but there's a bunch of value now on the Trailblazers. They have a really easy matchup against the Oklahoma City Thunder. And considering the players that Portland just traded, there is some value that opens up there. And then plus we got guys like Larry Nance on the injury report. Then we have Zach LaVine questionable, Whiteside questionable, Batadze questionable, Hart, Collins, Gordon Hayward, Jordan Clarkson, Kobe White, Larry Nance, Seth Curry, Rudy Gay. There's so many players that are on the injury report that by the time the slate locks, it's going to be a stars and scrubs slate. It almost always ends up being on 9-game slates because a lot of players get ruled out. We've got stars to pay up for, and a lot of value opens up.
Let's make it happen. Cleveland and Charlotte. Nice. Almost 300 likes. We're having some fun here. Cleveland and Charlotte. No Darius Garland. That's the big one here. And last time we saw Chetty start at the point, that was a failed experiment in game 1. Fantasy-wise, he was fine despite shooting like 3 for 16 or whatever it was. But then you saw Brandon Goodwin get the start last time out. Are you under the assumption that he starts again today with Garland out?
Yeah, and I mean, it was reasonable to assume he was going to start last game as well, because is what happened the game before. Even though Chetty started, at point guard in place of Garland the first game that he missed. Goodwin ended up starting at point guard the second half in place of Dean Wade, and they just moved Chetty over to a forward position. So I think it's going to be more of the same from Brandon Goodwin. He played 32 minutes last game. I assume about the same minutes workload. I'm projected for high 20s fantasy points, considering that he's $4,100 over on DK, and then on FanDuel he's $4,500. He's still somebody worth getting to. I think the $4,500 on FanDuel is maybe a little like close to fair, and it makes him not one of my favorite value plays. The build I have right now, I have about 10% of Goodwin, but over on DK, I still get him to a pretty high clip. He's 4,100. Like I said, I think he's going to start, play over 30 minutes. I'm projected for mid 20s fantasy points. He's a good value play.
Man, is Harden going to the Sixers?
No, I knew we got a super chat about that, by the way.
I think he is.
You do, well, you might be biased in the matter as well.
No, come on.
So the other thing too is it depends who you're looking at for some of this information. And if you've picked up on Shams' tweets over the last 3 weeks or so now, it's been a lot of stuff from Shams that Harden wants out of Brooklyn. He's not comfortable with the Kyrie Irving situation. I think part of it also, the story is that he doesn't like what the tax rates are in the New York, New Jersey area, and he wants to go somewhere where he doesn't have to pay quite as much taxes. That seems to be a factor as well. But then if you look at Woj's tweets, Woj says that Harden's committed to the Nets and he wants to stay there long term. But I also think we have to look at it logically. And when Harden's contract runs up in the offseason, the Nets have more ability to pay for him than anybody else does. And I can't actually see the Nets moving. I could be wrong, but my take on it is that Harden's going to stay with the Nets, sign an extension in the offseason.
Yeah, I don't know. That left hamstring tightness means boarding a plane, Greg.
It's so the other thing too is we'd have to pull up that old Reddit study and find the strip club ratings and find out where Philly falls.
I'll show him around.
Yeah, that's really what Harden's looking for here is, I mean, Miami, and there has to be a balance too, because you send Harden to Miami, you just lose him. He never comes back. Yeah. He comes back, groin injury every day, weighs 300 pounds, it'd be a disaster. So
it's like sending Lou Williams back to Atlanta. I mean, you got just bad stuff happening there. Lou Williams is still in Atlanta, but I'm talking about wasn't it the wing place?
Yeah, it was.
Remember he was saying his favorite chicken wings were at the strip club during like the onset of COVID.
Yeah, it was. What's the name of that place? I know. I made a fake review for it on Yelp that I posted on Twitter that got a bunch of engagements at the time. Let me see if I could find it, but. Yeah, it's a really well-known strip club in the
Magic
I'll have to look it up as we go. Magic City. Yeah, that's
This is why chat is great. They'll let you know right quick about these things. Magic City is what it was. Yeah, that was hilarious. Back to where we were. And thanks for the super chat earlier. You're right. Somebody did mention that. I have no idea, but you definitely think that Morey needs to work something big out, or it's just going to be a colossal failure. So we'll see. But from an ownership standpoint, what do you make of Goodwin today, given the value that we already have?
Yeah. So while I do think he's a pretty good points per dollar play, I tend to be underweight to him right now in both cash game. Well, in tournaments, cash games, I think you should still play him just because of how popular he's a good points per dollar play. But there's enough value on the slate that I'm not getting to 26% Goodwin over on DK. I'm not getting to 20% of him on FanDuel. I'm a little bit underweight to those numbers on both. Once again, it doesn't mean he's a bad points per dollar play. It's a 9-game slate. There's going to be a lot of value. And I don't ultimately see Goodwin ending up in a quarter of my lineups.
I was more surprised by Chetty's ownership projection on DraftKings at 5,400.
How about on FanDuel? He's projected to be in 50% of the field's lineups.
It's crazy. Yeah. What's his price on FanDuel?
His price on FanDuel is 4,300. So it's really cheap. It's really cheap,
palatable.
But 50% ownership that's a lot.
On a 9-game slate. Yeah. I mean, Josh and I talked about it this morning. Kevin Love's always an interesting one just because he's such a good per minute producer that if he does get a little bit of additional run, you can always get that big game. And you're talking about going up against a Charlotte team that on the season has a bottom 5 defensive rating, plays at one of the faster paces in the league. Anybody else like a Kevin Love that you're interested in for Cleveland?
Not really, just because of the size of the slate, and there's going to be enough value that I don't think we really need to point out anybody who's being like, oh, I need to get to this guy who's like some upside or is a little bit underpriced. And there's going to be a lot of guys that are really favorable looking. there's definite upside in Kevin Love. Something else, he's been closing some games recently over Evan Mobley. So that's something else that there's a little more minutes upside for Kevin Love than we've seen in the past last 2 games, 33 and 29 minutes. So if I had to play one of the big men from Cleveland, it would be Kevin Love, but it's still not really a priority for me.
Okay. And hey, thanks for the super chat, Mikey Cock. He asked about Irving. When I won't forget it. We're going to talk about that in depth when we get there. I guess I can ask you quickly, Greg, but I don't want to spend too much time since we have so many games to get through. Are you locking up Kyrie on FanDuel?
No, I mean, clearly he's a good pay up option, but he's also kind of been appropriately priced at this point on FanDuel and DK. He's $9,500 on FanDuel, maybe a few $100s too cheap. On DK, though, he's 10.3 was the price off the top of my head. So I don't really look at him as being somebody who I absolutely have to get to a ton of on this slate. In my FanDuel build right now, I have him in 33% of my lineups, which is pretty damn close to the field. Field has him at 31%. Really good play, but not somebody to say we have to lock him in. If he was still at 82, 7,800, then yes, but not at his current price as a lock.
So we just got word that Gordon Hayward's in. I love when we get good timing like that. The basketball gods are smiling down upon us, but what does that do for Charlotte? It makes them look like, to me at least, a relatively unappealing team collectively now that Gordon Hayward's back in the rotation. And a lot of these guys' price points, I mean, are fine, but I don't know if they're great. Like Bridges up above 8K, LaMelo's at 96, but there's a lot of good high-priced options today as well.
Yeah, I mean, with an eye on the clock and an interest in time, I just don't think there's that much to see. Or had Gordon Hayward been ruled out, there would have been some value here, but LaMelo's been pretty priced up at this point. Like you said, Miles Bridges is pricey. Rozier is really pricey. And we just have a guy who's a playmaker, a fairly high usage guy that was out and is coming back into the lineup. And a lot of these guys have been priced up a little bit when he was gone. So to me, the Hornets are one of the least appealing teams to play on the slate, especially when you consider it's a tough matchup against the Cavs.
With an eye on the clock and an interest in time, huh? That's nice.
All right. Hey, I know who we're at in terms of time on a 9-game slate.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a show with me, so hey, what do you expect? But no, some of these games we'll be able to rip through in all seriousness. I don't think it's going to be that difficult. We're trying to give you guys information that's actually going to help you and not just look at every game and be like, yeah, he's in play. He's okay. He's fine. I don't have an issue with that, when really that does you zero favors at all. Let's talk about Boston and Detroit. Boston laying 8 on the road, 214 total. No real injuries for Boston. We can talk about Cade Cunningham being out in the moment, but let's cover this Celtics team first. Anything you like here?
Yeah. So if you have the space to pay up for Jason Tatum, it's not the worst play in the world on FanDuel. DK at 10.6, I don't really have as much interest in it, but FanDuel, just because of positionality sake and that he's 9,800, so $800 cheaper than he is on DK. I think Tatum is the most appealing option. As for the other guys, it's hard for me to get to him. We've got Robert Williams, who to me is not somebody I look to play that much in DFS when Al Horford's in. Same goes vice versa. If Robert Williams is in, I don't really like to play Al Horford all that much. So big men out of the picture for me for Boston. Marcus Smart is never really somebody I roster all that often. It's just kind of Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. These are guys who are, if you have the space to pay for them, it's okay, but not priorities. The build I have right now, I have sub 10% of both of them, but have them in the player pool on FanDuel. DK, like I said, Jason Tatum, the price tag is a little bit too steep. Same goes for Jaylen Brown at 9,100. So low priority FanDuel plays Tatum and Brown.
All right. So Cade Cunningham is out. We saw yesterday Sadiq Bey went off. Jeremy Grant was the more popular option. A little bit disappointing. You have Corey Joseph, who's getting a little bit of ownership today as well. Look, 9-game slate. I can appreciate getting to some of these guys, but I will say, at least for me, and maybe you have a different opinion, at least on DraftKings, this is a far less appealing team, even though a lot of the salaries have remained stable since yesterday than it was yesterday when you had a little bit less value. You had some Spurs, I get that, but than when Cade Cunningham was out yesterday.
Yeah, and looking through the guys on Detroit, who really benefits with Cade Cunningham out? And it's, all right, Jeremy Grant leads the team in usage. And if we look at the prices on DK, though, Jeremy Grant is priced all the way up to 7,000. On a 9-game slate, I don't really have that much interest in a 7K Jeremy Grant. On FanDuel, though, it's 6,300. I'm totally cool with playing Jeremy Grant at 6,300 on FanDuel. Sadiq Bey at 6,000. That's also a playable price point compared to Sadiq Bey being 6,200 on DK. It's okay, but obviously slightly prefer the 6,000. So overall, my favorite play here would be Jeremy Grant over on FanDuel. You talked about the backcourt situation. There's extra minutes going to Corey Joseph. There's extra minutes going to Frank Jackson. But at the same time, we've seen Corey Joseph make a bunch of starts this year, and it's not that much fantasy upside. We've seen 14 starts from this year, 29 minutes per game, 29 fantasy points in those starts. No, that was per here. 29 minutes, 23 fantasy points in those starts. I misread a number, saw 3 as an 8. If you get 23 fantasy points out of Corey Joseph at his price point, it's not the end of the world, but it's not the greatest thing ever. It gets a little bit of a boost because of Cade Cunningham being out, a couple extra minutes, a little bit extra usage. So I have him project for mid-20s fantasy points. Okay points per dollar play, but not great. So if I had to roster one Pistons player, it would be Joseph on DK and it would be Jeremy Grant on FanDuel, but not super high priority, guys.
And another thing too is this matchup is just far less enticing as yesterday's was against Minnesota, right?
Not.
You don't think?
You said less or more.
I think the matchup against Boston is a lot less enticing than a Minnesota.
Oh yeah. I misread what you said. Not only is it less enticing, but it's also the tail end of a back-to-back. So fatigue plays a factor. So yeah, it was a better situation yesterday, and really the only guy with a big game yesterday was Sadiq Bey.
All right, so sorry, Justin's trying to. She's over at Mom's house. They're saying they're ordering Chinese food, and then
what are you ordering?
If you're not ordering some for me, we've got issues. I haven't had Chinese food in a while. You ever eat Chinese food?
Yeah, I'm Jewish. Like every Sunday, it's tradition.
I'm not Jewish, and my dad was the type of guy that would have us over at his house for Christmas, and he'd be like, "Yeah, we got Chinese straight out of the Christmas story, right?" Except, there was no caroling with a lot of R's.
So growing up in a Jewish family, it's Christmas. It's Christmas Chinese food because nothing's open. Everything is closed except for movie theaters and Chinese food restaurants. So we go to the movie theater, be the only ones there, and we get Chinese food for dinner. And then Friday night, Sunday nights watching football. My dad would always order Chinese food.
General Tso chicken, pork fried rice, crab rangoons. That's my go-to.
I get chicken with broccoli.
Okay. All right. So you go a little generic, but that's okay.
Yeah. And maybe actually, so I'm going out to dinner after this. Now I might go get Chinese food.
You have to now, but you got to go to like a good joint. You can't be going to the chain ones. You got to find like a good, trustworthy Chinese food restaurant.
There's a lot of really good restaurants in my town here. The Chinese food restaurant sucks, though. It's the worst Chinese food I've ever gotten, but there's other ones to try.
Okay. How about Chicago? Do you think Levine plays tonight? That's a big question. Second of a back-to-back, been dealing with back spasms, overtime last night against Toronto. I mean, it's kind of a perfect storm for him to get the night off against a completely depleted and beleaguered Indiana Pacers team.
I would be fairly surprised if Zach LaVine plays. I took him out of my projections for tonight. So LaVine last night, like you said, overtime game. This is the tail end of a back-to-back. He also talked press conference after the game and said as much that his back isn't feeling great and he might need some time off to really get healthy. Paraphrasing a little bit, but it was something along those lines. So with that in mind, I don't think he plays. Kobe White is also listed as questionable. I don't know if Kobe White plays, but I have a better feel on LaVine not playing today. So now it's what happens with LaVine being out. A little more usage goes to Vooch. A little more usage goes to DeRozan. They're both guys that are worth considering, but once again, not as primary pay-up options because the salaries are already there for these guys. It's not like we're getting them in the low 8K range like we were playing them a little while ago. 9,500 for DeRozan, 9,400 for Vooch over on DK. On FanDuel, we've got DeRozan right now at 9,600, Vooch at 8,700. Playable price point, but once again, center eligible. Is a little harder to get some of those guys on FanDuel than it is on DK. So I look at Vooch and DeRozan both as secondary pay-up options. The one that's most interesting to me is Dosunmu if Kobe White and LaVine both end up sitting. Because the Bulls have shown no issue just playing this guy as many minutes as he could handle. So last night, for instance, 42 minutes. The game before 36, the game before 34, but that was a blowout. Games were like 36, 38, 35, 40. I'd feel pretty comfortable projecting Dosunmu for 38 to 40 minutes if neither LaVine nor Kobe White play. So I think there's a lot about his game that isn't really sustainable. The assist rate, he's not going to continue to have these games where he shoots like 100% from the field. But considering the mid-range price point, he is somebody that appeals to me if LaVine and Kobe White, if neither of them play.
Do you think his usage rate increases enough? Does he see enough of that redistribution of LaVine usage, or does the bulk of that just go to DeRozan and Vooch? Because he's already a pretty low usage player.
Yeah, I think it just kind of gets spread out to a bunch of different guys. But the other thing too that's nice about Dosunmu is we've seen him put up big fantasy games, and it's not relying on usage at all. Like you said, he's a low usage guy. Usage rate for him in recent games, 16%, 10%, 9%, 13%, 12%.
Been a good facilitator.
Yeah, and he's still fairly regularly putting up good fantasy production in those games because the defensive stats, assists, rebounds, the usage rate could only go up from here. There's no down. You can't go down from like a 9 or 10% usage rate. So let's say he does end up playing with no White, no LaVine. Maybe he gets like a 20% usage rate. And then I think we'd probably be looking at him scoring like mid-30s fantasy points. I'm a little surprised his salary hasn't gone up more on DK or FanDuel. FanDuel, particularly considering how well he's played, only 5,500 on FanDuel. And then on DK, 5,600 with point guard and shooting guard eligibility. I don't have that much interest in him if LaVine and Kobe White both play. But like I said, I don't expect LaVine to play, and Kobe White's status very much up in the air. So
let's talk about Indiana. And by the way, any news that happens, you got Live Before Lock coming up next. It's usually Greg and Eric. I think you and Eric do Friday nights too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But tonight you got Terry filling in because Greg is in Adam Scher's stead. But definitely check that out. And then check out the after show if you're not doing anything. Hang out with them. Have some fun, talk ownership, Yahoo fantasy, all that good stuff. They're coming up right after us, all the way up to lock. And then 30 minutes after, Terry and Eric breaking news as well and answering your questions. But as far as the Pacers go, man, this one is very much in flux because Goga Bitadze and Brissett are questionable. You have no Isaiah Jackson. Sabonis and Brogdon are still out. Miles Turner obviously still out. So, I mean, this front court situation could be extraordinarily bare if both Goga Bitadze and Brissett end up sitting again.
Yeah, and like you said, it's with Sabonis and Turner up. There's no big men left on this team.
Nothing.
So
they just signed someone today. I forget who it was.
It was Reggie Perry. Yeah, Reggie Perry, who was on the Nets at one point. Actually, we just got word Reggie Perry is going to be available to play today. I was just, the sentence I was in the middle of saying was that I'm not sure if Reggie Perry is going to be available to play, and the tweet came out as
I'm telling you, we're getting lucky today, man. We're getting lucky. It's a good day.
So I guess they'd probably be forced to give some minutes to Reggie Perry if all these guys are out. But with that said, I don't think he's in the player pool.
It made me, well, Greg, the reason I asked though, is it made me think, and I can't imagine unless they put him in afterwards, it made me think that is this maybe suggesting that Bitadze and Brissett are out again? If they just signed a guy that can play there we go. Bitadze out. Would you look at this? I mean, we couldn't get any luckier today. Brissett is active though. So there we go. I mean, we are just rolling. Someone's winning a lot of money tonight, man.
Yeah. Well, if it's just based on timing of injury news and there's nothing else to DFS, we got this, got this fired up, but no, this is good.
Sometimes you just need things to go your way, Greg. That's all.
We were about to talk about the Pacers, and I was going to say, there's some what if situations here, but I was going to kind of say it's hard to know what to make of this team. Now we can kind of break down some of these situations right now, because with Bitadze out and Brissett in, I assume Brissett is going to start now, because they just don't have other big men. And like you said, they signed Reggie Perry just to give him another big body, but it's hard to think that he's going to come in on a 10-day contract, just immediately play a big role. So I think Brissett is going to get a lot of the center minutes, as is Terry Taylor. And I get that Terry Taylor he's like my height or something. He's like 5'3".
Dude, he's 6'5". He's 6'5".
Yeah, he's so tiny out there. But that aside, he played center against a really big Orlando Magic team last game and did really well. So I don't think they'd have any issue playing him a bunch of center minutes again. And yeah, I think he is officially listed at 6'5". I think you're right about that. The player they had, who's the biggest active player last game after Isaiah Jackson got hurt, Torrey Craig at 6'7". That's how small this team was last game. They took on a team in the Orlando Magic with Mo Bamba and Wendell Carter Jr. in the front court. They just played they played Terry Taylor almost all the center minutes. He ended up putting up 24 points and 16 rebounds. So I'd like to see the starting lineup here, but I think we have to assume that Terry Taylor and O'Shea Brissett end up splitting the center minutes with a lean towards Taylor at this point. Maybe Reggie Perry plays like 8 to 12 minutes off the bench, but it's hard for me to expect a massive role for him.
How many minutes do you think Taylor gets now that Brissett is active? If you're projecting him right now, and like you said, we have to wait for the starting lineup. That's huge. But let's say Taylor starts again.
I think he will. Now that I'm kind of looking through the team, he played so well last game. That's hard to think they wouldn't just go back to the well and start him again, especially because he did it against a bigger team. As for O'Shea Brissett, looking at some of his recent games, 23 minutes, 25, 17, 33. I think probably assuming he comes off the bench, I would say probably like 24 for him. I'm not totally confident what the starting center is going to be, but I assume it's going to be Terry Taylor playing big minutes. And then you're getting like 24 from Brissett off the bench.
All right. Give me your final thoughts on the Pacers here, and then we can move on now that we've got our news.
Yeah. So Terry Taylor, assuming he starts, really strong value play, even though he's going to be a starting center at 6'5". O'Shea Brissett off the bench.
Levine's also out too, by the way. Sorry.
Who's out?
Levine's out.
Okay. So there we go. That was, we were kind of expecting that. No update on Kobe White there, but yeah, Levine out. Chris Duarte, Torrey Craig, both secondary options that have a little bit of value to their price points, but the primary guy here is going to be Terry Taylor, assuming he starts.
All right. Yeah, I'm with you. Yahoo Fantasy. I don't know if you guys have checked it out yet. You should have. I mean, we've been running this promo for a while. I don't think you're going to find a better promo out there, in all seriousness. If you sign up at Yahoo Fantasy, you get a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, $90 value, everything on the site for every sport, all of the tools built by our guy, Awesemo himself. I mean, you just simply cannot beat this. So yeah, I shouldn't need to say anything other than that, outside of the fact that you're going to get the best payout structures over there. They have a ton of contests with 0 to negative management fees. Other sites might be called rake, in case you were wondering what that means. Seriously, there's so many reasons to play there right now. What do you got tonight? $60,000 baller, right? 6.5K up top. You're going to have some huge NFL contests. Oh yeah, there it is. $1 million big game baller, $150,000 to first. That's huge. I mean, there's just 10% management fee on that one too. Like there's just a lot of these have 0 negative. There's everyone wins contest. But the biggest thing is you get everything on our site for the entire month just by using the link in the description, or the one that our producer, Tyler Zander, already did or is going to throw into chat right now. It's that simple. And they'll throw $10 into your account in free play that you can take advantage of as well. So yeah, I mean, what are you waiting for? Seriously. Like even if you only play there a couple of times, you still got a month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. You'll end up playing more. And all of our tools have Yahoo built into it as well, so you can use that. But yeah, seriously, take advantage of it. Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, sponsor of the Deeper Dive. Get that free month of Awesemo. Get the $10 in free play over there at Yahoo and start winning some money with us. And join our Discord too if you decide to make it happen. All right, Greg, Atlanta and Toronto. Trae Young returned from a 1-game absence last time out. You've got them at 3-point dogs against the Raptors, 216.5 total. Toronto, another team that played overtime. And as we know, Nick Nurse runs his starters for big minutes. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Do you have any interest in the Atlanta Hawks tonight with Danilo Gallinari is out too, by the way? And
John Collins is questionable. So
that's a big one.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things to break down here from Atlanta. First of all, from a FanDuel perspective, Trae Young's only 8,800. To me, that's a pretty ridiculous price point. And he's also not popular, which is also equally weird to me. So we got a way underpriced Trae Young at $8,800 against what I would assume to be a pretty fatigued Toronto Raptors team. And he's only picking up 13% ownership. So I really like getting to Trae Young over on FanDuel. And then we have to talk about the John Collins situation. If John Collins plays, there's not a whole lot to see here. I think DeAndre Hunter is somebody who's an okay value play just because Danilo Gallinari is out and there's probably a few extra minutes coming his way. But if Collins sits, I think this could be a good spot to target Clint Capella because he's still a good points-per-minute fantasy producer. From a real-life perspective, his defense has dropped off pretty significantly this year. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. And as of late, he's been splitting center minutes with Okongwu. So as a result, with Okongwu and Clint Capella splitting the center minutes, John Collins has also lost out on any of the center minutes he's played. So it's made all three of them just not very appealing fantasy options. But if we take Collins out of the picture, then I think we could see, like I was saying before, Collins and Okongwu could share the court together, or Capella and Okongwu could. Capella could get back to 30 plus minutes. And considering how cheap his salary is on FanDuel and DK, he'd be somebody I'd really like to get to. And I really don't think he would be popular either. I think people are kind of done rostering Clint Capella at this point. So Trae Young on FanDuel, regardless. If John Collins is out, then I like Capella.
Okay. So you think even if Collins is out, Capella still will be relatively unpopular?
Yeah, it's been a minute since we really saw people get to Clint Capella at all, and I don't really see that changing because a lot of people look at the box scores, and I don't know how many people are going to project Clint Capella all that well. I think a lot of people still just look at it as, hey, 26-22 center minute split between Capella and Okongwu, but I do think there's a chance they could share the court together, and it's been a minute since we saw bigger minutes from Clint Capella. He hasn't played over 26 since January 3rd. I think he could do it tonight without Collins, though.
I think you're right. And the only thing is the opportunity cost at center, right? Like that's the only thing at this point with things opening up at center. So we'll see what that looks like. Anyway, on the other side of this one with Toronto, how are we trying to sift through all of this, given that, Siakam and Van Vliet and OG and all of these guys are going to just play big minutes, regardless of it being the second of a back-to-back, even though they played overtime.
Yeah. And I mean, there was a point in time there was a day, it was a week and a half ago, Nick Nurse came out to the media and like the liar he is, he goes, hey, these guys, he's like, we're about to go on a big road trip. We got a bunch of games in a short amount of days. I'm going to ease up on these guys' minutes. I think Siakam, Van Vliet, these guys have been playing too much. And Siakam's averaging like 45 minutes per game ever since he said that. I think actually 2 days after he said that, he played Pascal Siakam 57 minutes in an overtime game. So there's no truth that he's going to limit these guys' minutes. If the game was to become uncompetitive, then sure, maybe he eases up on them a little bit. But I don't care that Siakam's been priced up a little bit. I still want to play him. It's hard not to project him well if we're going to give him 40 minutes every day, which he warrants. Same goes for Fred VanVleet. $8,600 over on DK, $8,400 over on FanDuel. Siakam still mid 9K range on both FanDuel and DK. I love getting to both of those guys. Gary Trent to me is just too pricey at this point. He had that really hot shooting stretch and got really priced up. Scotty Barnes, he's also been priced up a little bit. So to me, it's really Siakam, VanVleet, both is somewhat low owned pay up options and nothing else to really see from Toronto.
Josh and I spent a bunch of time on this today, and we kind of just came to the same conclusion that this is the type of team, because of their minutes and because none of them are like overly insanely priced, you're not making it a priority to get there, but you're never really disappointed if you do.
Van Vliet's a little bit more of a priority for me, just because more so on FanDuel. At 8,400 for Van Vliet on FanDuel, that's pretty hard for me to stay away from, especially when he's only projected for single digit ownership.
Okay. Good stuff. Anything else for this one? You want to keep it going?
No, we keep it going. Just Siakam and Van Vliet.
All right. Free content today too. I talked about all our tools before, and you can go to awesemo.com/join and get a weekly, monthly, annual, whatever you want, any type of subscription, no matter what type of player you are, your budget or anything, all of that. But if you wanted to check out some free tools today, you don't even need a subscription for it. Maybe you're not ready to join us over there, but you want to take a look. Ownership projections, you can follow along with us. They're totally free tonight. Again, you don't need to sign up. You don't even need to log in. NHL top stacks and MMA rankings, all of them completely free. Talk to me about Houston, Greg. This game, this total opened at like 232. We're up to 237.5. Houston 7-point dogs. That moved a lot once we got word that Jakob Poeltl and DeJounte Murray were no longer on the injury report. Both of them will play. But just to kick this game off with Houston, insanely high scoring projected contest, at least. I don't know how, like Jalen Green is the one guy getting the most ownership here. Outside of that, pretty quiet on the Houston front, all high single digits, but single digit ownership elsewhere.
Yeah, we did see extra minutes go to Şengün yesterday, but here's the caveat to that. Christian Wood got into foul trouble. I would like to be able to project Şengün to play like 22 minutes or something like that. And if that was the case, I would really like getting to him in this spot. He's projected for 5% ownership on DK, 3% on FanDuel. I don't think he's a bad flyer if you're looking for a punt play, but it's really hard to prioritize him just because those minutes are so uncertain. And once again, those minutes from yesterday were inflated by Christian Wood getting into foul trouble. But as for the other guys on this team, Kevin Porter Jr. has some appeal. Jay Sean Tate does, Eric Gordon, Jalen Green. And I hate to just say like, oh, all of these guys are viable, but they kind of are just due to the pace of play expected in this game and some of these guys' price points. Like you said, Jalen Green's pretty popular. There's only 4,300 in the game that he's going to start. He's going to play a bunch of minutes and he's probably going to take a lot of shots because that's what Jalen Green does. So none of these guys I look at as being like, oh, I want to build around any player. But a bunch of these guys, like I said, Porter, Tate, Gordon, Green, these are all guys who I'm getting to like 10 to 20% of.
What about on San Antonio now that Murray's active?
Yeah, so now that we officially know that Murray's active, and not only that Murray's active, but Pirtle is active also. There was a bunch of guys that were sitting yesterday that are all going to be back in the mix. And it was a spot where we came into the day thinking these guys were either going to be sitting or not playing, but Keita Bates-Diop is back. Zach Collins is back. He hasn't really played this year, and he could end up being in the rotation.
No Lonnie Walker, though.
Yeah, no Lonnie Walker and no Jock Landale. But at the same time, DeJounte Murray back, Jakob Poeltl back, Doug McDermott back, Keita Bates-Diop back, Zach Collins available. It's a lot of guys to give minutes to. And I understand the total for this game is really high, but I don't see that much that's really appealing. There's never an issue with paying up for DeJounte Murray. He's somebody who I think makes a whole lot of sense, maybe a little bit over-owned for my taste. But still, I think he's a good pay-up option for this slate, just considering the total and how high his upside is. But we see an inflated price point for Jakob Poeltl. I don't really want to pay $7,300 for him. I don't have an issue with getting to Derek White, but he's less appealing also now that we have DeJounte Murray back in the picture. So as high as the total is for this game, it's really just Murray for me.
Okay. Which is crazy. It feels like we're wasting a game, but there's not so much you can do about it. New Orleans, another game here, 6-point dogs, 224 total on the road in Denver. They've been dealing with a ton of injuries lately, but they're starting to get a little healthier. Josh Hart's really the only one right now that is questionable to play. Yes, Hernan Gomez and Temple are out, but that would have been a whole lot more valuable information or a whole lot more meaningful from a DFS standpoint if Ingram and Valanciunas were still out, but they're back in the mix today. So does anybody for New Orleans stand out to you as someone that you're looking to actively target today? Because to me, it doesn't really, at least on DraftKings, doesn't really feel like it.
One of the least appealing teams on the slate, especially because we have those guys back, a lot of players priced up due to injury. I think the most appealing guy here would be Brandon Ingram, is worth a few shares of. It's $7,800 over on FanDuel. That's a little bit cheap for him, particularly if Josh Hart is ruled out. But if Josh Hart ends up playing, I just don't think there's a whole lot to like here. A lot of the guys, Valanciunas is priced up a little bit. Then, guys like Devontae Graham, Herb Jones, Jackson Hayes, they all become less appealing if Hart's in. So I don't really think there's a lot to see from the Pelicans.
All right. See, I told you, we'd rip through some of these, make it a little bit easier on ourselves. How about Nikola Jokic, man? Value is starting to open up. Is it going to be enough? I'm not sure. Like, I think he's still a perfectly reasonable play, but there's a lot of good high-end players today. We'll talk about Irving shortly, Luka, Embiid, a bunch of high-priced guys in these later slate of games. Where do you stand on Nikola Jokic right now?
If you have the salary, play him. Yeah. And I think he's going a little bit under-owned on DK. Let me refresh the ownership to see if we've had any
15%.
changes. Yeah, if it's still 15%, I'm about double that number in the builds I have right now. Over on FanDuel, where 11.2, that's a very reasonable price point for Jokic, and he's only projected for 21% ownership. That's also a number I have about 50% more of. It's the same deal for me. If Jokic is on a slate, I generally have him projected for like 8 to 10 or so more fantasy points than any other player who's available. Same case for today. I understand he's gotten to be a little bit pricey on DK, but if this is going to be a slate where we're going to have a lot of value, which is usually the case on a 9-game slate, the raw points at the high end matter more than the actual points per dollar. And Jokic pretty clearly has the most upside of any player going today. So I'm going to be getting to a lot of Jokic.
Anybody else though from Denver?
Not really. I'm just sorting through the build I have right now to see if there's anybody who's popping up at all on. So even on FanDuel, all the lineups I made, there is not a single player I get to in more than 1% of my lineups outside of Jokic. Over on DK, kind of the same story. There's a couple of shares of Barton in there, a couple of shares of Monty Morris, but it's Jokic or bust for me. If you have the salary, pay up for him. He's the best pay up option on the slate, but nobody else is appealing.
All right. 3 to go. Let's see what we got. 15 minutes. All right. We're doing perfectly fine here. Let me see. Do we have an updated Hall of Fame, Tyler? We do. How many do we have? Don't do me dirty here. Okay. That's not too bad. Sometimes it's like 15 of them on a 9-game slate and we have an hour. Let's do it. Let's induct a couple people in the Hall of Fame real quick. Yeah, it's only right for those of you that got here for us to do this. If you want to get involved, you want to get up here as we do this every night, inducted into the Awesemo Hall of Fame, and of course, get a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, $90 value. All you got to do is download the Awesemo profile picture at awesemo.com/avatar and tweet your wins at Awesemo HOF on Twitter. Include Greg and myself too, because we like to see that stuff. So yeah, be sure to do that if you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, and get that free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Everything on the site, all of our tools, and we'll do what we're about to do right now, like we have with Bad Andy DFS. Took second in the sharpshooter, not quite 5K entries, but I thought it would post. I post anyway. Yeah, and look, even if you don't qualify, if you got something you're proud of, we'll shout you out. Second place, 250. Good stuff, Andy. Ugly 8 game, 1750. Thanks again to the team. This guy has been crushing it lately. Incredible advice and helpful tools have helped me sustain success. They've taught a man how to fish in DFS. Austin, first time being in the top 3. Let's go. $300. Second place there with a solid 310 score. And Praz Racing, unpack the bags, honey. Mortgage is getting paid. 08, 7-game slate that I can't lose on a lucky 7-gamer. Hey, babe, we have it until the 5th, don't we? Oh, I got to proofread these things. $1,500 though, and a huge 389 score. Congrats, Praz. KC 750. And you see how many people are winning in NHL lately with these Hall of Fame segments, Greg? Pretty impressive stuff.
You know what happened is Adam got COVID. He can't play as much NHL because Adam dominates the sports he knows nothing about, with NHL, PGA. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe it was Jay Carey got Adam COVID to get him out of the NHL streets.
That's it. Awesome tools though for NHL, and our hosts, Jake and Cliffy and Josh, they're all great, man. I finally emerged in these NHL streets. $1,000, second place. Congrats. Look at that, man. Welcome. If it's your first time in the Hall of Fame, you've formally been inducted. Welcome back if you've been here before. Awesemo.com/avatar. Join the team, baby. All right, let's do this, Greg. Still got a little bit of time. Brooklyn and Utah. The Nets are now, what's the 5.5 point dogs, 229.5 total. Hamstring tightness, they say, for the beard in Brooklyn. Who knows? Not me. Maybe Daryl Morey's working something up over there. Give me the alert. We've had good luck with that every time we talk about something. What are you doing with them, though? I mean, honestly, we got to start with Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, so a lot of people are going to want to play Kyrie Irving, and for good reason. There's no James Harden. There's no Kevin Durant. This Nets team does not have very much depth. They brought in some players in the offseason who I think we thought would have been good depth, whether it be Paul Millsap, and he's just away from the team, doesn't feel like playing for them anymore. LaMarcus Aldridge, he's out. And then you just got kind of these older veterans that all got washed at the same time. Bembry, James Johnson, Blake Griffin, just guys that don't have anything left in the tank. So there just isn't anybody else to really take on a whole bunch of the usage outside of Kyrie Irving. But here's the flip side of it. He's $10,300 over on DK. That's already about a fair price. I haven't projected for 51 fantasy points today. There's clearly upside there because if the Nets are going to keep this competitive, it's going to be on the back of Kyrie Irving. Over on FanDuel, he's 9,500. It's a little bit more reasonable of a price tag. I'm right around even with the field on him. In cash games, particularly on FanDuel, play Kyrie Irving. But if I'm on DK, I'm still prioritizing trying to find a couple $1,000 extra to get up to Nikola Jokic. I'm projected way higher than Irving. And then once again, here are the numbers for Kyrie Irving over the last 2 seasons with Harden and Durant off the court. It's hard to just look at this season because it's such a limited sample for Kyrie. 34.1% usage rate, scores 53.52 DK points per 36 minutes. Solid numbers, but it's not something that I look at a 10,300 price tag and be like, oh, I need to get to a ton of this guy. So Kyrie Irving, to me, he's in 33% of my lineups right now on FanDuel. DK, I have Kyrie at 12%. So the ownership's about appropriate to me, and the price tag, especially on DK, is already at a spot where it should be.
Orton's neckbeard. I don't know if you made that up or you've seen it elsewhere, but that's hilarious, man. I've never seen that before. Find this comment in the chat. You will appreciate this. While you look though, you've got Kessler, Edwards, Patty Mills, Claxton. You saw it?
That's how my parents met.
That's outside of Irving though, is there anyone you want to prioritize here, or are these guys you're just kind of mixing in?
Not really, because even let's say that, Patty Mills, we're going to expect extra usage for him. Well, he's $5,600 over on DK. I don't really have that much desire to play a $5,600 Patty Mills, and on FanDuel he's $6,800. So the price tags are already there for these guys. The front court situation, Nick Claxton's been priced up, and he's still competing with Day'Ron Sharpe for minutes. We generally don't see a whole lot of playing time upside for Nick Claxton. He did get 20 to 29 minutes last game, but I don't really think that's something we're going to see again. Even 29 minutes for Claxton, I don't know that's going to be enough for me to really want to roster him when he's $5,600 over on FanDuel and only a center eligibility over on DK. So it's just really Kyrie Irving for me, and he's already appropriately priced on DK and appropriately owned on FanDuel.
Do you think, and we can talk about Bojan Bogdanovic on FanDuel, but with Donovan Mitchell, do you think he's going under owned today at it's 5% on DraftKings, 7% on FanDuel for a guy that is going to be asked to shoulder a pretty heavy offensive load again now that he's back and off the injury report?
Yeah. So the only thing that I'd be at all hesitant to is he going to have any kind of minutes restriction? He was dealing with a concussion. He hasn't played now since
the 17th.
Yeah, January. That's a long time off. We haven't seen him from
a concussion though. Just I don't know. I worry a little bit less about that.
It just depends where his conditioning is at, because you assume that he probably didn't get all that much cardio in. So we'll see if he's totally unrestricted. I'm just kind of pushing back a little bit there, but he's one of my favorite tournament plays on the entire slate. Like you said, Donovan Mitchell, especially, he's $8,300 over on FanDuel and not picking up ownership. Over on DK, the price point is a little bit more expensive, but the ownership just isn't there. 8,400, 5%. So I wouldn't play him in a cash game because of some of the concerns about his minutes workload. But for tournament purposes, the upside is so significant. The ownership is so low that I really do want to get to Mitchell. And then also you consider the injuries for other players on this team right now. Rudy Gobert's out. Joe Ingles is out for the season. Rudy Gay is questionable. Jordan Clarkson is questionable. Hassan Whiteside, that doesn't really have any real impact on Donovan Mitchell. But once again, it's another guy on the injury report. There's a possibility that we're going to see this team with, Mitchell, Conley, Bogdanovic, O'Neal, Forrest, Azubuike, Hughes, Pascal. It could be a 9-man rotation today. And if that's the case, maybe they are going to be forced to just give Mitchell all those minutes. So yeah, considering where his ownership's at, I'm going to say he's my favorite tournament play on the higher end of the pricing range.
I like him a lot. And I think even if Clarkson sits, as you were talking about earlier, if Collins is out, you don't think Capella gets that much additional ownership. I'm not sure that Clarkson's ownership or Clarkson's potential absence is actually going to affect Mitchell that much to the point where he's not still a good tournament play.
No, it wouldn't make him not a good tournament play. But if Clarkson is out, then you're just looking at this team being like, who the hell is going to take shots? Because then it's Mitchell, Conley, Bogdanovic, and then it's, Whiteside isn't a high usage guy. Royce O'Neal certainly isn't. Trent Forrest isn't. So it would just be forced for Donovan Mitchell to take more shots. And then also considering that the Nets defense has been much worse since Kyrie Irving came back.
That for sure. Yeah. I mean, that Bogdanovic price though on FanDuel is really appealing. Look, he's totally reliant on scoring, but this could end up being one of those games where Bogdanovic ends up taking 20 plus shots. We've seen him do it before, and they're already limited in terms of personnel.
Yeah. And Bogdanovic also, even looking through some of his recent games, he has been adding rebounds at least, 7 rebounds, 4 rebounds in the last couple of games. Like you said, if he doesn't make his shots, he's not going to have a good fantasy game because he doesn't provide that much from other categories. But it's not like we're going to get zeros from Klay Thompson across the other stat ranges. So 5,100 for Bogdanovic, particularly if some of those other guys end up not being out. I mean, we're probably looking at like 36 minutes, 38 minutes from him in that situation.
Anything else you want to get to for Utah? Obviously, still a lot of news pending. That's why live before lock is important. Might not get it anyway, but for what we know right now, is there anything you like?
If Whiteside plays, I really like him as a tournament option because once again, White's a really wide range of outcomes with Whiteside. We've talked about this guy so much over the last, month and a half or so, and the box score is all over the place. I mean, last 5 games from 51, 27, 36, 23, 27 fantasy points. But if you're really chasing that upside for Whiteside, which is what we're looking for in tournaments, there's clear 50 plus fantasy point upside. He's a well over point per minute fantasy producer per minute for the season. And people aren't going to play him because he's questionable heading into lock. So the current ownership we have on Whiteside, and also we didn't mention yet, but the ownership projections are free to use over at Awesemo.com today. So you guys should check those out. Whiteside right now is projected for 4% ownership on DK. On FanDuel, he is projected for 3% ownership. There's clear upside at that kind of salary. And this is the kind of guy that I want to gamble on large field tournaments.
We had a super chat as well from Michael. Hey guys, any reason why Derek White's so high owned today? Think there are just many other guards for FanDuel advice. Thanks for the super chat, man. Hey, look, one reason is he's not very expensive. It's a extremely high total game against the fastest paced team and the worst defense in the league. So, I mean, I get it. I think he's definitely, he's very popular, but especially with Murray back. But I mean, it is one of the best. It's probably the best matchup in the league that you could get right now. So there is that, Greg.
Yeah. So as for Derek White, I project him fairly well. I just don't think he's worth the ownership he's getting right now.
Very
high. That's really the issue I have with Derek White. It's not a projection issue. And if you're playing cash games, it probably makes sense to have Derek White in there. But he's 6,600 on FanDuel and projected for 28% ownership. Over on DK, 6,400 projected for 25% ownership. He's one of the 5 or so most popular plays on both sites. And that's a little bit much for me.
Nova Scotia. I'm sure that was a dog, but it kind of sounded like Loughy's in the engine room of an ocean liner and she's going down. That was her barking from downstairs. Amazon, man. Some of them ring the doorbell, which I don't understand. Just drop it off. You know what I mean? I don't need that. All right, Greg, you ready? We got 2 games to go.
Let's do it. Bang him out.
Yo, hey. She's scratching at her bed. You good? All right. Dallas and Philly. I think we can get through Philly pretty quick unless there's something you see that I'm just kind of missing. But outside of obviously always knowing that Embiid has a spectacularly high ceiling and is a better play on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings, I'm just not really that interested in the Sixers today.
Yeah, Seth Curry is questionable, but even if he's out, Tyrese Maxey's been priced up at this point. There was a point in time where Tyrese Maxey, when Curry was out, it'd be like, oh, look, he's going to play all these minutes. He has a lot of upside. But Maxey is $7,600 over on DK. On FanDuel, Maxey is up to $7,700. I don't want to pay for him at that kind of salary. So for me, it's kind of Embiid or bust. But if I'm paying up for a center, I'd rather it be Jokic than Embiid. So I don't really have all that much interest today in the 76ers. There was a bunch of slates where I like getting to Embiid just because I had him projected within like 6 fantasy points of Jokic, and he had a fraction of the ownership, and he was a lot cheaper. But that's not really the case anymore, because if we look over at FanDuel, for instance, we have Jokic at 11,200, but Embiid is at 11,000. So there's only a $200 salary difference. And the ownership is about the same, 15% for Embiid versus 20% from Jokic. So it's still, to me, if I'm paying up for a center, it's Jokic over Embiid.
Okay, I agree with that. What about Luka Doncic on the other side of this one? The Sixers defense really has not been that formidable recently.
Yeah, and I think the main reason has been because Embiid is such a good defensive player and much better, I think, than a lot of people might realize. But his usage is so high on offense that how much energy does he have left to play on the defensive end of the game? Because, every game you look at the usage rate for Embiid, it's like, 44%, 48%, 55%, 41%. And I just think he's so exhausted by the time they get to the other end of the court that he doesn't have the energy to play defense. So I think of Luka as a good guard option as a pay up for sure. I'd rather pay up for Jokic if I'm only choosing one or the other. But I do think that there's a little bit of Doncic getting overlooked on this slate. He's only 10% projected owned on both FanDuel and DK. I think that's a number to be about double the field on. once again, if you're only playing one lineup, you only have one guy you could pay up for. It's Jokic over Luka. But in large field tournaments, you're playing multiple lineups. The overweight to the field on Luka.
Ted, I would stop ordering that shit if the small businesses actually existed around me anymore, which for the most part, they don't. So, yeah, it's a sad day in this country, but man's got to do what he's got to do. And I'll show the dog at the end of the show. Why not? She's 70 pounds, though, so I'm going to have to hoist her up, get her onto the chair. Anything else you want to hit on for Dallas with Porzingis out?
What kind of dog?
She's a pit.
Oh, okay.
She's a pit mix. I did a DNA test. I was curious. She's like 50% pit, 15% Rottweiler, 15% Chow Chow, 15%. Basically, like all of the dogs that we lived in an apartment you weren't allowed to have. But the place we got her from, we adopted her from, labeled her as a boxer lab mix. And my assumption is they did that because people are more pro. I knew what she was out of the gate, but you can just tell. But I think they do that because you're more prone to adopt them. Like, oh, it's a boxer, when clearly it was not a boxer.
Yeah. By the way, people should really be liking this video and subscribing to the YouTube channel because show us some love. You want to see a puppy. You want to see a dog. You got to like the video.
Yeah, absolutely. I should have said that. We're 20 shy of 500 likes. 20 shy. So we're going to get there, no doubt. Did you have anything else for Dallas?
Yeah, so a couple different guys on different sites. First of all, for FanDuel, Jalen Brunson's only 5,800. He generally sees extra usage and plays extra minutes in games without Porzingis. So Brunson makes sense on FanDuel. On both sites, play Dorian Finney-Smith. He's somebody who also stands to gain a lot of minutes without Porzingis in there. Last game, it was an overtime game, so there is a little bit of an asterisk there, but still 43 minutes for DFS last game. He still would have played 38 minutes had the game been in regulation. The game before without Porzingis, he played 39 minutes. Considering the salary on DFS on both FanDuel and DK, Finney-Smith, I think, is a good value play. Brunson's 6,500 on DK, not as appealing, but 5,800 on FanDuel. That's a price point to get to.
All right, let's wrap this up. OKC, Portland. The Oklahoma City Thunder are down a bunch of players themselves. Portland just shipped off Norman Powell and Robert Covington to the Clippers, but no SGA still for OKC. Aaron Wiggins, Robinson Earl, those guys are out. Look, this is just a bad team, Greg, but that will open up some value today. Giddey, specifically on FanDuel, but guys like Darius Baisley, Trey Mann, who I said to Josh, just scares the shit out of me because this is the type of guy that has a 7% assist rate and 5% rebound rate. I mean, that could go south real quick, but we got to talk about him.
Yeah, he's picking up too much ownership. I think that's the easy way to look at him. For sure, there's upside in him just because of all the guys that are out for them. He's going to play extended minutes. But I think there's better value plays to look at from OKC. Baisley's going to be popular, but I think he's a good piece of chalk considering the amount of guys that are out. And Baisley also has been playing really well as of late and playing extended minutes. So last 3 games, 26, 26, and 36 fantasy points for Baisley. Also 36 minutes he logged last game. So it was 36 fantasy points in 36 minutes. Hard for me to get away from him considering his price point on both FanDuel and DK, where he's well below 5K on both sites. Also his multi-position eligibility. I like being underweight to Trey Mann, like we just mentioned. He's just so popular when you consider that he's right now projected to be in, 16% of the field's lineups over on FanDuel. DK, we have him projected for 23% ownership. That's a number to be underweight to the field too, in my opinion. I like getting to Kenrich Williams also. He's cheap on FanDuel and DK, and somebody else who could pick up extended minutes. Last game, he played 29 minutes against Dallas, and a lot of that, I don't think he closed the game in overtime off the top of my head, but I think he's somebody else, cheap price point, and could end up logging extra minutes just because of how shorthanded OKC is in the front court.
So since we're up against it, just top plays, if you were to rattle them off in order.
Yeah, so from OKC, it's Baisley and Kenrich Williams. Those would be the top ones. Same for me over on FanDuel. And then talking about the Portland side, I feel like we just don't have enough information on Portland right now because they made that trade today. So they're already going to be shorthanded from that sense. And then they also have Trenton Wofford and Larry Nance Jr. are questionable. So I guess Simons, McCollum, and Nurkic, just as the pay-up options, all stand to gain a little bit with Norman Powell out of the picture. But for the value guys, I need to know what the starting lineup is. I assume somebody like Ellaby is going to look good, or maybe Nance looks good if he enters the starting lineup. But once again, he's questionable to play today. So be on the lookout. Whoever starts for Portland that's cheap is going to be a good value option.
All right. And again, as we know, live before lock right now, Terry and Eric, we have let's wrap it up with this super chat. Okay. From Goody. Is there enough value to squeeze Doncic and Jokic into a lineup in a DK 20 max in tournaments? Greg, I'd say there is, but I don't know if it's going to be particularly pretty either.
Let's see. So I'm going to see how many lineups I have out of 150 with both of them. Pick your dog up and put her on screen while I'm.
All right, let's do it. I think the problem with that too, though, is like there's a lot of good plays in that 10 and 9K range as well. So
out of the 150 lineups I built on DK, only 4 have both Jokic and Doncic. It's just really hard to find the salad when they're that expensive. So points per dollar, I don't mind them even at their high salaries. I think they're good guys to pay up for individually. It's just so restrictive to get both of them in. Oh, look at that. There's the doggo.
There she is, man. There she is. She's a good one. She's getting gray under the lips now, under the nose. But yeah, she's 5.5. It's a good dog. Good dog. Anyway, ready to wrap this up? Send it over to Live Before Lock.
Let's do it. Let's pass it over to those guys.
Thanks for hanging as always. We got, by the way, 681 likes. I mean, we just crushed that. So you guys are the best. Appreciate you. Have a good weekend. Josh and I'll be back on Sunday doing a little strategy show. I think Greg will be here tomorrow as well. So you guys make doing this fun. We'll see you back here very soon on the Deeper Dive presented by Yahoo. Stick around. Live Before Lock and the after show coming up next. Peace.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the NBA Live Before Lock show presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Little sneak preview at the pup, Duke himself. Welcome you all to the show. Excited to be chatting a little bit of this, 9-game NBA DFS slate we've got ahead of us here on DraftKings FanDuel and our sponsor, Yahoo. I got Terry McBride here in the house, being able to hang out with us, but a little puppy Cam, just saying hi, happy weekend. Let's get to it. So let me introduce Terry McBride at DigitalB21 on Twitters. How you doing, my dude?
I'm doing great, man. I'm just enjoying watching you wrangle Duke for the last couple of minutes.
Oh, man.
He seems really enthusiastic about being on the show today.
I was going to say, I'm trying to get us those likes. Oh, I know. He's going to go to his mom
Smash
now.
that like button for Duke.
Going to mom.
Aww.
He's just chilling. He wanted to say hi too. So
I was going to say,
from
here, folks.
Got to get those likes in. You know, it's a good start to the show. Excited to be chatting this slate. I think there's a lot of news, a lot of fun stuff to be getting to, but it's always fun to start off with a dog. He's making me happy. Hopefully he made everybody else there happy too. But a little Bernese Mountain Dog. Let's get it going here, Terry, my guy. First question I always ask Greg on these shows, because normally it's Greg and I doing everything on these shows together. I'm excited to have you. What is the piece of news that you are looking forward to the most that's going to shape your lineups the most?
I tell you what, a guy that I wasn't really expecting to be a big part of my day earlier that's suddenly come up like crazy in this last FanDuel crunch is Kobe White, who we've got as of the last time I saw anyway, is a game time decision after we got the Levine out news. So that was one that's going to be somewhat impactful, at least to what I'm doing on FanDuel. I think the Whiteside news is going to be fairly critical. That's a nice major piece of value in the center role. So probably those two pieces are the most important right now. Anything on your radar that's that you're keeping an eye out for?
I mean, that's gigantic. We have Portland's starting lineup that's going to be interesting, making sure Kessler Edwards is starting. I'm assuming he is because he's been for a while. Just making sure there's so many pieces of chalk that have kind of emerged in the last 2 hours. You know, I did the NBA tournament videos there for Adam Scher as he's on vacation. Oh, no, I mean, he's taking care of himself, but hopefully he's doing well. Excited to be having him back to do those, but doing 5 tournament plays, 15% and below. And, you know, it's just amazing how a slate can just change drastically. James Harden gets dropped at the very tail end of the Yahoo show that I had earlier today with Aton. Just so many pieces of news here. Let's, should we go down the speed round of things for news that we're kind of waiting on or that have already broken?
If you have a few other ones that you wanted to throw in, I think it's always a good way to start off. But yeah, to your point of what you were saying, I was writing my article this afternoon. From the time I started to the time it ended, Harden got scratched and that trade got made. So I had to, it's just all like right in my intro. It's like an example of how things can change in just minutes.
All right, there we go.
Go for it.
Seth Curry, questionable. Kobe White, questionable. Darius Garland, Markkanen are out. John Collins and Lou Williams, questionable. Gordon Hayward's active. Whiteside, Clarkson, Gay, all questionable for Utah. Kristaps Porzingis and Brown for Dallas. You got James Harden, LaMarcus Aldridge, Paul Millsap out for Brooklyn. We've got DeMarcus Cousins out for Denver. We've got Indiana, Goga Bitadze, Sabonis, Jackson, Brogdon, all out. We're looking at who are they getting back here? O'Shea Brissett is going to be in there. They've got Reggie Perry now active. That's brutal. New Orleans Pelicans, Josh Hart's questionable. We've got Cade Cunningham and the whole lot of those guys, Jamarco and Josh Jackson out for Detroit. Goran Dragic out for Toronto, of course. Lonnie Walker out for San Antonio. Aaron Wiggins, Isaiah Roby out for OKC. And Trendon Watford and Larry Nance questionable. That is a huge piece of news for me. There we go. Now we can start the show, can't we?
That started to sound like Johnny Cash's I've Been Everywhere, Man.
That's kind of what it was a little bit. Do you know that one? Is that like a karaoke go-to for Terry McBride? I feel like it would be.
I mean, I know the song, been in a lot of commercials over the last few years, I think, but I'll knock out a Johnny Cash song for karaoke, but nobody wants to hear me sing. But I was more a Creedence guy. The Creedence was always our go-to for karaoke. We would get nicely tuned up and then go sing a few out-of-tune Creedence songs.
That sounds kind of fun.
Yeah. What about you? What's your go-to for karaoke?
Colors of the Wind, Pocahontas. How about that?
Let's
get to it. To the guard spot we go. We go position by position here on this show. I'm looking at the top end, and I think Brandon Goodwin, a fantastic piece of chalk here in the early slate, but two guys that have kind of emerged. DeJounte Murray got ruled in. He's 10-5. He's in the best game environment. A 122 Vegas implied total for the Spurs. Yeah, it's baked into the projection, but it's not baked into the price. 10-5, the amount of ceiling that we can have there. No Lonnie Walker, tons of stuff to be getting to there. Anthony Simons has emerged 6,600. But let's start with this top end. DeJounte Murray, 10-5, very chalky. We have Luka Doncic, who's 1,400 more if you want to be paying that freight instead of Jokic and Embiid. Kyrie Irving is 10-3 and very popular. Who are your priority spend-ups at the guard position?
I think it starts for me with DeJounte Murray on both sides. Really, really like him. I get to him a lot. He's been my probably most featured player in my article that I write every day throughout the course of the season. And he's just performed and not really slowed down. 1.4 fantasy points per minute for the season. That's up from 1.11 last year. He's just really been spectacular all year long. 38.1% assist percentage, one of the highest, the second or third highest on the board today. So absolutely prioritizing DeJounte Murray. Love his shooting guard eligibility on the FanDuel slate. Multi-position over there makes him just so much more flexible. 27% optimal, leading the way on the DK slate. 20.9% optimal among guards. Love getting to him over there. He's slightly negatively leveraged, but I don't really care. It's about a quarter of all lineups. Not really sweating it. Kyrie took a big bounce as well from the star level as far as guards go. He went up to 14.8% optimal on DK after Harden scratch. Kind of expected. Jumped up to 27.7% optimal on FanDuel. Also point guard, shooting guard. 1,000 cheaper on the FanDuel slate than DeJounte Murray is as well. Kind of makes Kyrie interesting there. Definitely somebody you can look to in that game. With it's one of the more highly total games on the board as well. He comes in around efficient ownership, basically even money as far as the leverage plays go. I think there's Karis LeVert is on the board. There's a mix of value plays. I'm less excited about Derek White than our tool is. I think I'm just leaning more into the DeJounte Murray side, but I'll have a lot of White based on how he's been coming up in my crunches here. And then it's, like I said, it's a lot of mid-range and value type guys, a lot of $4,000 guys, $5,000 and $6,000 guys before you get back to anybody like Luka is down board on both sites today by optimal lineup rate. 12.8% optimal on FanDuel, 9% optimal on DK because of that massive salary.
All right. And now let's kind of look into this mid-range. Anthony Simons, Brandon Goodwin's 4,100, so I'm not going to put him there. Derek White, 6,400. I get why he's getting a little bit more ownership. I caught the tail end of the last show, and obviously it was somebody that Derek White, 6,400. It's 122 implied total against a terrible Houston team on the other side. I think getting some exposure to guys, and Derek White could see some extra minutes absent Lonnie Walker. I do think Devin Vassell, God forbid. I don't even want to talk about that dude after yesterday. But regardless, we kind of have to talk about the Spurs just with that total. Anthony Simons or Derek White, pick one for today.
I'd probably go Simons more frequently than I go Derek White. Not necessarily going by the numbers on that one, just kind of how it's coming down for me in the mix that I'm getting. I like both players. I just, like I said, I'm getting to a little bit more on just kind of leaning into the DeJounte Murray side and thinking about splitting that up. I think there's definitely a path for both of those guys to get there in the same FanDuel lineup. And a lot of lineups where I don't have DeJounte Murray, I will have Derek White in that place. But between White and Simons, I'm probably going to have a little bit more Simons. But when it comes down to optimal lineup rate, it's clearly Derek White. When it comes down to the boom score probability, also clearly Derek White. He's leading by about 7 percentage points in both of those categories. They're just projected fairly similarly in the median projection, and Simons is owned a little bit less just in the raw ownership percentage. So it kind of plays out a little bit like that for me. On the DK slate, with Simons coming in 6,600 versus 64, a little bit more of a toss-up. They're about even money over there. So I would probably break it down the same way, where I'm just getting to that construction of Murray and Simons a little bit more.
All right. I don't mind that at all. I think Simons is going to be everybody's priority. So I know we're projecting it at like 25.6% and 23%, but with DeJounte Murray in and, Derek White kind of, I think was garnering a ton of attention this morning before we got news on DeJounte Murray's status. And then he just ended up not being on the injury report. I think we're looking at a spot where we can definitely be firing up Anthony Simons. But if the field's going to be completely there, I still don't want to be off of Derek White whatsoever in tournaments. I think it's too good of a game environment. We're seeing guys like Jalen Green, Devin Vassell, who we'll talk about in a second as well. I think everybody in this game environment is just garnering attention on different sites, different price points, but those guys are all cheap over on DraftKings. So Derek White, 6,400, just cheap. Devin Vassell and Jalen Green, super cheap, 4,400 and 4,300. That kind of brings me to my next topic for you here, unless there was something you wanted to say about them first.
Yeah, I just wanted to drop in on White just real quick. He does also have multi-position that the other options don't have. Murray and Simons, neither one of those guys has that. And in the overall, he's lower owned than Simons, 22.9% versus 25.6%, somewhat negligible. But for 200 less, coming in more frequently, optimal, higher boom score, there's an advantage in going to that on the DraftKings slate. Slightly favor White, but again, it comes down to that Murray and White construction together.
All right. Here's the important question, because this is probably what I think is the most important decision. And Cleveland was a little bit later into the slate a couple days ago when you had Chalk Chetty and Brandon Goodwin. Now we're looking at the exact same situation, or I don't even know what to say. They're good plays, but you're giving up roster spots in the 7 p.m. session of games. We have a lot of news that is going to be left to break, specifically at the forward positions with Portland, whatever that starting lineup ends up being. OKC, the assumed starting lineup, whatever that could be. You can rotate into some Philly Dallas pieces and tournaments, but you can really react to how these chalk plays do earlier in the day. And that is Brandon Goodwin here, 4,100 over on the DK slate. Over on FanDuel, you're looking at him still also being pretty darn popular just because of that tag. He is 4,500. He's still garnering 15%, so less of a priority. But what do you plan to do with Brandon Goodwin on this slate?
So I don't love the Goodwin play based on where it's coming down. I'm getting to more of Chetty Osman at the small forward, power forward position, but so is the field. So I'm just kind of uncomfortable with that situation in general. At 4,500, point guard eligible only. Goodwin's coming up 6.3% optimal on the FanDuel slate. At 4,100 on DK, you're at least getting him 10.4% optimal. It puts him as the, let's call it like 10th or 11th most frequently optimal point guard on the board. And as a value play, I just don't love it because he's really over-owned to that mark. He's going to be in a quarter of lineups based on where we've got him projected. And he ranks out really, really similarly to a lot of these other value and like $4,000 choices, like a Devin Vassell, if you're looking at, if you're just looking at the guard position, or Jalen Green, point guard and shooting guard eligible. CJ Ellaby, even at 3,000, is coming in frequently optimal. So there's just guys with lower ownership that are coming in a little bit more frequently optimal that we can look to and get away from that 25% ownership on DK. And then he just doesn't look great on FanDuel. So I'm not getting to a ton of them. And I think I'm going to be either I'm going to be uncomfortable with my Chetty ownership, or I'm going to have to undercut where the field is, because I don't love that position either. I
like Chetty a little bit more than I like Brandon Goodwin on this slate.
I did the other day. And
yeah, that was fun.
A little bit of recency bias creeping in for me, I think. But just with a negative 20 leverage score, I think I'm okay undercutting that anyway. Like I'm trying to explain my recency bias away, kind of.
Well, Chetty on DK is a different thing than Chetty on FanDuel. 4,300. So. I know you're a blue site guy, and I think you can fire up Chetty at will 4,300, and I think that's where I'm going to get most of my exposure. I'm not going to get a lot of exposure to anything, I think, from Cleveland compared to what the field is. Brandon Goodwin, 4,100 is just fine. We're projecting him for 30 minutes. I think there's a number of paths where he probably gets me in trouble, but he hasn't eclipsed like the 30-point mark. And I think it's a piece of chalk that I'm willing to not be on. I'm not passing up on him on Yahoo. Our sponsor, Yahoo, he's $10. I think that $10 is very, very valuable over on Yahoo to be playing over there. By the way,
if he was 3,000 on DK, we'd be calling him the best play of the slate.
Exactly. And so Brandon Goodwin, he's $10 on the Yahoo slate. If you're trying to play Embiid and Jokic in the same lineup, or I have a lineup that I'm going to be playing in the Awesemo Slate Starter exclusive single entry contest that we have going, it's $10 to get in. It's got 150 or 200 spots left to go. There are 5 places up top where you can win free months of Awesemo Plus Platinum. I think it's 3 months and $1,000 to first. Go play in that tournament. $10. Sign up for it. Look at that. Up on the screen, Tyler Xander is on top of his game here today. Per usual. I wouldn't expect anything less, but you want to be signing up and playing in this contest. So we're going to have a promotion for you guys to sign up if you haven't had a chance to play over at Yahoo. But jump in this contest, $1,000, $750, $500 on a $10 entry fee, plus months of Awesemo Plus Platinum, $90 value for each one of those months. So go check out that contest. Go fill that thing up for Ryan Rinpack, as you all guys know him, top 15 player in the world. He's outrageously good at this DFS thing, but we wanted to put cool tournaments together for you guys over on Yahoo, and they're helping us do that. So wanted to talk about Brandon Goodwin there specifically. Terry, let's talk the guard position, and let's just kind of open this up a little bit. It's a 9-game slate. We could get very specific about certain things. I got the question from somebody in chat about who we think the starting lineup is going to be from Portland. So let's kind of identify this. I think we're both pretty much in agreement that McCollum, Simons, Nurkic, and probably Snell are locks. Like those 4 feel like guys that are absolutely going to play minutes. Who do you think is that 5th starter? Because I think that's a segue to the guard that I'm the most interested in at the position.
I mean, we've got looking at where we're projecting guys. We've got Ellaby projected out at 24.6 minutes at the small forward position. Certainly seems like he could see a pretty relevant role. Small forward on FanDuel, shooting guard, small forward on the DK slate. You've also got Dennis Smith Jr. in there. He's only pulling a 19.9 minute projection. So if I'm guessing who we've got projected to start, and I'm talking in some random guessing terms here because I'm stuck on a frozen screen until this sim finishes running.
Isn't that fun? Isn't that fun?
It's just so much fun. I took a screenshot of it before you asked the question, so I'm just kind of looking at the one image. But if I'm looking at based on where we've got the minutes headed, it does look like on this guards and forwards screen that I'm looking at here, it would kind of lean toward the Ellaby play between those two guys if we're just looking at the guard spots.
All right. Well, regardless of if he starts or not, I think Ben McLemore on FanDuel, 3,500, 3,700 over on DK. And Ellaby, I think at 3K on DK makes for a great pivot off of McLemore if he ends up starting. But, I mean, Larry Nance could be that fifth starter, and that is definitely in play alongside Nurkic. But I think it would surprise me simply because I think they need to have a guy play the backup five. Cody Zeller continues to be out. I'm projecting Ben McLemore to be the starter here for Portland tonight. And I think at 3,700 on DK, and especially, I believe he's small forward over on FanDuel, being able to fire him up at the absolute floor, I think that's a piece of value that I'm just kind of plugging and playing into my lineups. And, I'm going to hope that news comes out before, we get to that 9 p.m. Eastern time window of games. But I think that guy is really getting slept on in tournaments. I expected him to garner a lot of attention, and it's just not there. And he's not a great fantasy point per minute guy, 0.71 on FanDuel for the season. You do have Simons, you do have CJ McCollum out there that are going to eat up a lot of usage, but Ben McLemore, going back to his Kansas days and then in the NBA, has always been a willing participant in the shooting department. We're talking about tournaments. He's like 1 or 2%. I think I want to get to a lot of them. What do you think about that play?
I don't dislike the play in theory. The one issue I do have with it, he's shooting guard, point guard on FanDuel. He is dead minimum price, 3,500. You had said small forward. If he was small forward on FanDuel, I think that would have a lot of additional value. We just have a lot of blockers, point guard, shooting guard on FanDuel who are coming up a lot more frequently optimal. They're all a lot more owned, bigger boom scores, bigger median projections, of course. But if we get news where McLemore's starting, we've got him projected 25.6 minutes. He's coming up like 6% optimal over there. But like you said, only 1.5% owned, 16.2% boom score probability. If we squeeze that up to a few additional minutes, that could pick up additional value out to like 10% optimal. And if nobody's going there, it could be a nice, sneaky little min price tournament play that's a real lineup differentiator because nobody's going to that point. Nobody's going, a lot of people will have $4,900 value, 48, 46 in a lot of those shooting guard and point guard spots, where if you can drop down by another 1,000, you're paying up for something else in one of those other positions. That could be a real differentiator. So I don't dislike the idea. I'd like to see him land in that starting lineup first.
Yeah, I agree with you. Let's ask this question because Terry Taylor is shooting guard. I don't know, on FanDuel. I guess he is 6'5", so there's that. But we got a question from Andrew Martinez. Can you play Taylor and Brissett in the same lineup on FanDuel? Absolutely. Why not?
Yeah, I don't see why you couldn't. There's going to be enough production to go around for anybody, and they're all so inexpensively priced on most of these sites that you can get to that. I'm just trying to pull up a Terry Taylor 5,500. Well, maybe not. Maybe I'll wind that back a little bit. It looks like on our most recent update, not coming up all that frequently optimal. We might have something to catch up with over there, but maybe I unwind that a little bit and say maybe I'm not quite as excited about Terry Taylor as I started that out as on the FanDuel slate.
I'm probably with you there. People talking about Nurkic ownership. We will get to Nurkic. I love him, but he's sub 20%. He's not 35%. If you were 35%, pretty easy to hit the eject button. And obviously center has a massive opportunity cost on it today. We shall get there. Going position by position here. Anything else that you have a burning desire to talk about at the guard position?
Other than the fact that I need like a minute or so before I'm going to be able to change this.
Okay.
Tab.
Yeah. So you take 1 minute here. I'm just kind of, guys, I'm looking at a guy like Trey Mann. I get why the rostership is where it is, 3,200 or 4,200, but sometimes we kind of over project a player coming off of 41 minutes. It was like a circumstantial thing. He was playing really well against Dallas, but I find it hard to believe that a guy like Ty Jerome isn't going to get mixed in. And we're seeing 4,200. We're seeing him be pretty popular. 31.5 minutes is a far cry from 41. And that needs to kind of be emphasized. So he's a fine play. You end up in that game environment, which actually isn't as good as I was expecting. Only a 213.5 total. That was very surprising to me, considering you think of OKC and Portland teams of yore, and that would be north of 225. But Trey Mann is just a guy that I don't want to be playing as value. Are you on board with me?
Yeah, I thought he was a little bit interesting the other day. Wasn't really considering him all that much today. Just looking at where he comes in on FanDuel, he's kind of just a meh value, kind of based on everything I was saying before about the good mix of point guard shooting guards that we've got with much better optimal lineup rates. So I don't love him there. 4,200, I kind of get it on DK, but only 8.2% optimal and 22.3% owned. I just want no part of that leverage. And he's not key to success. It's not one of those situations where he's 25% optimal and you've got to be there and you don't worry that he's 40 some odd percent owned. He's not a key over on DraftKings by any means. There's a lot of different replacement parts that you can plug in and get the exact same predictive value out of. So yeah, not a part of my plans.
Kobe White is out. So Ayo Dosunmu was already getting some attention, and I would love to get a live. I'd love to get a live glimpse at Rinpack right now. I've never seen somebody have a disdain, and Ryan's a pretty even kill chill dude. He has a visceral reaction to this dude with how much he dislikes him. That's the Michigan fan in him going up against an Illini guy. And, you know, Michigan's going to be the better program going forward. So you can chill out. I mean, I guess Coffee's a freak this year, but looking at Ayo Dosunmu, and if you want to bring Javonte Green into the conversation, I suppose you can. That game locks in 31 minutes. What do you think about already a popular Dosunmu, 17.8%, projected for 37 minutes? He does have to still deal with DeRozan and Vooch in terms of usage, but he has been getting there in such a meaningful way, assisting 11, 9, 8 assists the last 3 games. I'm fine taking that shot at 5,600 on DraftKings.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. He was looking 5,600 point guard shooting guard on the DK slate, 10.7% optimal. He's already popular, so he'll probably get more popular, and the optimal rate might not escalate that much because he's already 36.2 minute projection. So even pulling Kobe White out of there, maybe we forecast him a little bit more usage, a little bit more opportunity to facilitate some things on the court. But I don't know that the optimal goes shooting through the roof in comparison to what I expect the ownership will jump like. But I still kind of like the play, at least as a mid-range mix and match kind of a guy. I might not get over the field, but I would certainly be happy to have him in lineups. I think he projects out well, and I think he could easily deliver value for that salary.
What are you talking about, E-Rush? He played for Illinois. We're talking about Ayo Dosunmu. Kobe White, yeah, he played for UNC. What are you talking about? Don't do that to me. Let's keep it rolling. Anything else at the guard position for you, my friend Terry?
Well, just in looking at it, I mean, looking at the DK slate, outside of the top couple of options, there's a really flat board. It's a plateau of just, general, regardless of what price tag you're looking at. It's a big plateau of like optimal lineup rates. If you're sorted by our optimal lineup rate, after you get outside of DeJounte Murray, Derek White, Simons, and Kyrie, you get to Devin Vassell at 13.7% optimal. And then you can scroll through another 18 guys and get down to Brandon Ingram at 8% optimal. So, I mean, that's a 5 percentage point range. If you think about it, that's a lot of guys, and it's a variety of prices, variety of multi-position eligibility. You can do a lot to mix and match lineups on DK today, where you can just make pure ownership plays and get away from the field and differentiate lineups by doing that. There's a lot of low owned potential from mid-range.
All right. There's also a lot of potential if you're a resident of New York, following the template that Alex Baker, guys like my guy Terry over there, everybody who has legal sports betting in New York, whenever you make your way over there, take advantage of all these promotions and offers we have going with these sports books. There are so many great sportsbook offers, whether it's bet $10, win $200. And, if any team scores a touchdown type promotions, free NBA jersey if you bet $100 at Caesars, $1,000 risk-free bet with BetMGM, $1,500 match deposit bonus with Caesars. These are the kind of things that are going to make you a profitable sports bettor right from the get-go, give you free opportunities to build that bankroll. So go take advantage of all of these. Alex Baker has kind of put all of those offers, referral links into one place for you. Top betting site, promos and promotions, current sportsbook offers right there on the screen. Makes it easy. Check out all of those. $1,000 deposit bonus at DraftKings, $1,000 risk-free bet at FanDuel. If you're in New York, I know the handle has been outrageous in that state, but it's also because it doesn't get a whole lot better than being able to live bet from your phone. So take advantage of these, sign up these links, get these free promos, and use OddsShopper in congruence with it. Use oddshopper.com in order to find the best lines for all games, to find the best lines according to Awesemo's projections for every prop, for the NFL, for NBA, for every sport that we're going to have very, very soon here. But NBA and NFL right now, take advantage of it. Use the parlay builder, use the arbitrage betting, use everything all together in one nice place. That is oddshopper.com. Love you guys for checking that out. So go check it out for us here. Let's get back to some DFS though here for you, Terry. The forward position. We talked about Brandon Goodwin on one side, Cedi Osman on the other. I think he's less of a talking point on DraftKings, but on FanDuel for sure, 4,300. That is your site. What are you planning to do with him?
Yeah, he's the most frequently optimal forward on the entire slate, 22% optimal, negative 20 leverage score, though. The field's going to him nearly half the time, 43%. Like I said, it was a play I was more enthused about the other day. It was the heads up I was more enthused about, those 12 assists. I got stars in my eyes. I was saying, hey, he went like 3 for 19 that game before, but he still had 12 assists. I think he's going to do things facilitating. I think he's going to be interesting. And he came out and put up 15.7 FanDuel points in 35 minutes. So a little bit of recency bias creeping in around the edges, but just based on that ownership, I'm comfortable getting away from it a little bit. I think there are some good comparable mix and match pieces on FanDuel, like 14.5% optimal, also slightly owned, but less expensive. Kenrich Williams can kind of fill that role. Darius Baisley, 16% optimal, also kind of overowned, but 4,700 can kind of help fill that role. So there are different ways to go. I'll have plenty of Cedi. I'm hoping that I come in below that field number, though. I think I want to be below it just based on the negative leverage. DK, like you said, a lot less of a consideration, 9.9% optimal, still overowned, but a lot less important over there.
Ms. Unick asking, any interest on 3K Ken Birch on DK as a punt? Absolutely not. You have to use a center spot. There is such an opportunity cost there. And I don't even have him projected for over 8 minutes. 10.5 we have here for him here at Awesemo. So I am not going to be rostering any Ken Birch. Let's quickly move ourselves on to the rest of the forward spot here. Again, so much news that is still yet to come here. But Terry Taylor, I'm okay at 4,200 if we want to be playing a little bit of him. I want to see this Pacers starting lineup. I'm eagerly awaiting that. As soon as that thing pops up, I know News God's going to have me covered, and we'll be able to talk a little bit more about him. Darius Baisley, I cannot believe it is Darius Baisley Day because I've been playing this guy forever. I do not want to play him at 25.9%. I can tell you that much, although far more offensively competent of late. Normally a guy that I like for some of his defensive abilities, his ability to guard multiple positions and defensive efficiency numbers that are generally a little bit better. So more of a real life basketball player I like, less of a fantasy asset here. Who on the popular end of some of these cheap 4,400, 4,200 players on DraftKings are you looking to get to the most, Terry?
Yeah, looking at the DraftKings board, I mean, Baisley makes a ton of sense sitting there 16.4% optimal, but you do have the negative leverage issue. At 4,400, you can consider him. Javonte Green at 3,500, Terry Taylor at 4,200, Devin Vassell at 4,400. All these guys, various forward positioning, and a number of other value plays that just, if you sort by optimal lineup appearance rate, you scroll down and it's all below the $5,000 mark until you get to Kevin Love at 6,900 and 11.7% optimal. So you've got 6 options that you can kind of mix and match through those shares. And they vary from the top of Darius Baisley at 27.9%. One of those options, Blake Griffin, 8.1% ownership, 13.6% optimal. I'm never really enthusiastic about getting Blake into my life, but at a 0.92 fantasy point per minute rate, 1.09 over the last 3 games, 21.2 minute projection, there's enough there for him at 3,600 that you can get away with it. So there's a lot of value pieces that you can mix and match. It's very much a slate that has a big plateau on each of these positions. Like I was saying, with more expensive guys at the guard spot on the DK slate, you get a lot of that with value at the forward spot here. So I think there's plenty of forward value that you can get to. And then there's a few of these more highly ranked star caliber guys like Pascal Siakam, DeMar DeRozan, both rate out pretty well.
Yeah, there's so much value at the forward position. I mean, we can go Ellaby, which again, I can't believe Ellaby, Wallaby, woo, 16.7%. That's crazy to be seeing at 3K. I thought he was kind of a sneaky tournament play when I was putting together the tournament DK tournament video today, but I digress. Not sneaky, confirmed. Kevin Love, sneakier. This guy, he's up to 6,900 on DK, probably less so there, but on FanDuel, play multiple sites, play Yahoo, play our sponsor Yahoo, $21, a little bit of an opportunity cost when you play him at center, as opposed to getting the power forward eligibility that you get over on FanDuel. But a guy that he's been closing basketball games, and he closed against Houston. We saw a 35.3% usage rate there for him. I love seeing the minutes kind of up for him in these spots. So another guy to kind of give a shout out to. Kessler Edwards, somebody that's really popular over on both sites now. DraftKings 4,200, 3,900 over on FanDuel. I don't really know if there's any other Brooklyn net. I expect it immediately. You see James Harden ruled out, and you're like, whoa, I need to get to all of these nets. And I'm getting to Kyrie, and I'm basically writing off the rest of the team. Are you with me, Terry?
Yeah, that kind of looks how like my lineups were breaking down as well on at least on the FanDuel slate. Popping back over to DK and looking at some of the forwards here, it kind of looks like that's how our board breaks down. I mean, I just mentioned the Blake Griffin value is there on the Nets, so you could get to that on the DK slate. But like I said, it's not one that I'm overly enthusiastic about getting to. And then none of these other forwards are really exploding for value on the DraftKings slate over here. So yeah, I think from the Brooklyn side of things, I'm mostly getting Kyrie, and it's mostly on FanDuel where I'm building lineups, obviously. But yeah, Kessler Edwards, 4% optimal on FanDuel, 3% optimal on the DK slate. Over-owned to a massive degree on both sites based on where we had our numbers, 15.5% ownership on DK, 21% on the FanDuel slate. It's just not an exciting spot for me right now, despite what is a big uptick in his potential minutes. 0.68 fantasy points per minute for the entire course of the season, 0.59 over the last 3 games, averaging 26.7 minutes a game. Nothing really to get too excited about there for me. So just a mix and match. I'll take a few shares of them, but nothing to go crazy. Not going to be near the field.
All right. Super chats to keep up to date with here, Terry, my friend. $4.99 goodie. Let's put a poll up for who wants to hear Terry sing. Over 50% of you guys got to get it done. Yes. Put up the poll. That's a yes. What happens? We don't even need a poll. What we need is over 1,000 likes. If we get 1,000 likes, you get to have Terry singing at the end of this program, and not me, which is like a double win. So cool for everybody involved. Boatman DFS 2-month member. I love the badge. Claxton or Stewart at the center spot tonight on DK. I promise we will revisit that when we get to center here. We'll keep it moving, but Boatman DFS, love to see the 2-month badge. D Owens 89, $1.99. Troy Brown Jr. Joker or LaMelo and Bay for a DK GPP. This got interesting, Terry, because I expected Troy Brown to start last time out. He did not. And now today in the starting lineup, filling in for Zach LaVine, Troy Brown Jr. So I love that first one, Brown Jr. and Joker, as opposed to LaMelo and Bay. What say you?
Yeah, it was basically decided on Nikola Jokic being in that first one for me. Neither of the other guys gets there. We're nearly to what he could produce. LaMelo's very good, but it's just a different stratosphere of star. So getting the idea that you're getting a starter in there as well as a value play, I definitely like that group better.
I'm not chasing Sadiq Bey today. LaMelo Ball I do like, but Jokic and Troy Brown Jr. is a punt that's now viable. I mean, it wasn't like he was going to go flying up the board and I need to get to a zillion of him now, but he's definitely a good play. K2 Simple Manai, $2. Do we know if Clarkson will play? We do not. If I did, I would tell you. Luis Jose Lopez Actor, $1.99. FD. This is a Terry special right here. So we've got Kyrie, Mitchell, and Bey. So a 3v3. Kyrie, Donovan Mitchell, and Sadiq Bey, or DeJounte Murray, Ben McLemore, and DeMar DeRozan.
Probably the DeJounte Murray one. I think.
I'm with you. I think McLemore 3,500. He's just a guy that I want to roster quite a bit of, and I'm assuming we're going to get that Portland starting lineup with 4 games left to go. And if we don't, maybe I have to make some decisions, and you got to move some stuff around. But Kyrie's a great play. Everybody's there though, and DeJounte Murray, I project for just a little bit more than Kyrie Irving on FanDuel, but obviously a price discrepancy. I just want nothing to do with Sadiq Bey on this slate.
Yeah, and just looking at, I mean, that's where it's really close is on the Murray Irving. We're talking about a 0.6 difference in our optimal rate. We've got with Kyrie getting a little bit ahead, a 2 and change or 1 and change rather boom score probability difference. The ownership is basically the same, 28.5 for Kyrie versus 29.3 for DeJounte Murray. Murray projected out 4 and change fantasy points in the median a little bit more, but he's $1,000 more expensive. So that just breaks down really interestingly. My preference generally is to the Murray side of things, but like you said, looking at Saddiq Bey, 6,000 at the small forward position, no, necessary changes for him, coming up just 3.5% optimal and over owned even at that level, 5.3% ownership. I just don't really want very much of it, projected at 27 points in the median. Could he put up a 50.6 point FanDuel performance like he did the last time? Sure, but I'm not really expecting it in either of the numbers.
All right, we got Hamidou Diallo starting. They're just rotating this 2 spot in Detroit. Obviously, no Cade Cunningham today, and Magruder started yesterday. You have Joseph, Diallo, Bey, Grant, Stewart on for starting lineup here for Detroit. That's not doing a heck of a lot for me. I think looking through some of his starts, it's not like super appealing. We saw him in OKC. He can get there in some kind of a meaningful way. He's a 0.97 fantasy point per minute guy over the course of this season, but a lot of that without, there's no Cunningham today, but a lot of that without Jeremy Grant. You got Saddiq Bey that can eat up some of that usage, even though I don't really want to be going there. A little bit higher usage guy. I think that kind of further bolsters my case to still not be on Saddiq Bey more than it does me wanting to play Hamidou Diallo. But any thoughts with Detroit with that starting lineup?
Diallo's a player that I do like. I think he's a capable player, capable scorer, 0.97 fantasy points per minute for the season, 0.99 over the last 3 games, but only 17 minutes a night, small sample there. The thing about that play is stepping into those starters minutes, he's already priced at 5,300 at the shooting guard small forward position on FanDuel. 4,300, could I make a case for him a little bit more on DK as a shooting guard small forward mix-in type play? Yeah, I guess we can if you're giving him, an additional 10-ish minutes over the 17 that we had him projected for before. But he wasn't making a dent on the slate at that 17-minute projection, 0.8% optimal, 1.7% boom score probability. Even adding 10 minutes, I don't know that he necessarily vaults up where I'd want to get to him ahead of all those other options that we've talked about.
Is Eric drunk? No. Is Eric lit? Yes, I'm definitely lit. I'm here to talk some NBA DFS. We're having some fun. Check back with me about 7 p.m. tonight. We'll see what happens. But looking at 1,000 likes, do we want Terry to sing? 62% of you would love to hear the angel voice of T. McBee. That I'm looking forward to later in the program. No doubt about it. Get that Creedence Clearwater Revival firing up. What are we at, Tyler? How many likes? We're almost there. It doesn't update on my screen. Okay, 951. 955. Look at that. Beautiful. Get it up there, guys.
722. They're actually going down. They're 400. It's approaching zero rapidly.
I see what you did there. I respect the game. Guys, 15 minutes before lock, head over to Yahoo now. Go play in the $10 single entry that we have for Awesemo. Go play in all of the great contests they have there. Oh, and we got the starting lineup here for Indiana. I will touch on that in a second. Plus, we're going to have half an hour. We're not going anywhere. 45 minutes left in the show. This is the exact halfway point. I just want to tell you about Yahoo for a quick second, where you can get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. All you do is sign up, deposit $10 or more, and you get that free month. It's as simple as that. There's no strings attached. That is what you do, and that is how you get it. Just any new account, deposit $10, free month instantly. You just play in any of those paid contests, the quarter, the dollar, or, I prefer that $10 that has the Slate Starter podcast name next to it. So check it out. Look at that up on the screen. Tyler Xander on top of it here today. Go play in that. We also have the $60,000 Friday Baller, $25 entry there, the $5,000 Awesemo Slate Starter contest, which I just brought up. 3-month Awesemo sub to first place for that. So you could get a month by signing up. And if you win, you could get 3 more. You could basically have from now until June covered at Awesemo Plus just by winning that tournament and signing up today. So I don't know what you're waiting for. It's the best contest, lowest rake, lowest management fees you're going to find in the industry, right around 11, 12%. They have massive Super Bowl contests. Go check out everything that they're offering. They are so player friendly, player first. You're going to love playing over there just as much as I do. And it's because I'm paying less rake. Simple as that. I want to make money, and that is going to help me do it in the long run. No doubt about it. So stop guessing, start winning. Join us here at Awesemo Plus, but do it through this offer. Thank you so much to Yahoo. They do an amazing job sponsoring all of our stuff here, and really appreciate them. But I'm telling you, you'll appreciate them too, just because of how much money they're going to save you by playing over on their site. All right, my friend, we got the center position, and this is kind of what leads it into it. We have a 6'5" guy playing center, starting center for the Indiana Pacers. LeVert, Duarte, Holiday, Craig, and Terry Taylor playing the 5 today. Thoughts on that starting lineup?
a bunch of Hall of Famers in that lineup. I mean, my God, that is a hell of a thing.
I mean, Chris Duarte, quack, quack. He played at Oregon. That's all. That's really what it is. It's a bit. It's a bad
Any way
bit.
that we can work the quack quack in for you. Yeah.
It's awful.
With the bit.
I don't think Terry likes the bit. I don't think he likes the bit.
This Terry or Terry Taylor?
That au contraire, you're a funny guy.
So look, 4,200. I get it with Terry Taylor on the DK slate. I can't really talk bad about anybody named Terry, but like you said, 6'5" guy playing center. Don't necessarily know how much he's going to see out there of like useful action. He's just going to be on the court. A 1.27 fantasy points per minute player in his minor role, 1.27 over the last 3 games in 23.3 minutes. There is some capability there for sure, but it's not one I'm overly excited about. It's a plug-in value at a position that we were just saying has a ton of value because he's power forward eligible as well on the DK slate. And I just think there's other options at center where we can get to some bigger scores. Like we've got to spend our money somewhere. We've booked a lot of values in. So I'm not going out of my way to get to him at negative leverage, but I think it's fine to build into around what the field is getting. If not, if you're 25% against 18%, it's not a disaster. I'd say the same if you were 15% against 18%, not a disaster.
All right. Totally not a disaster. The starting lineup again, somebody didn't hear it. Levert, Duarte, Holiday, Craig, and then Taylor. So there's your 5. I said we would bring up this question, the super chat at the center spot. I don't want to forget about it. 11 minutes to go. So Boatman DFS, hopefully you're still around. Claxton or Stewart for the center spot on DK tonight, Terry?
Probably Claxton, I think. Nearly 30 points median projection for him. Just taking a look at where we've got him on the board, 32% boom score probability. Kind of like looking at that. Stewart, I have to actually give it a little control F to him and find where he's at. So that's never a good sign.
That's not a good sign.
Down the board. 23.2 point median projection, 10.3% boom score, 2.5% optimal rate. Not really comparable options there. 4,800 for the worst option there. I think I greatly prefer Claxton for $100 more.
Greatly on this end as well here. We want to do that. I'm real forever. Vooch smash spot. I don't completely hate that. We'll get to him here in a second. Crooked Samaritan. Is Brissett still in play with Taylor starting FD? He's not going to be in play for me on a 9-game slate where we already have a ton of great value, especially cheap value at the forward spot. I just don't know what those minutes are going to look like. He's coming off of, this isn't somebody coming off of COVID. This is somebody coming off of an actual injury where we have to be a little bit concerned about right ankle soreness and whatever that would mean. But I think we were projecting him closer to in 25 minutes. We'll see what that number comes down to, but I just can't imagine getting there anymore.
No, me neither. It was 23 minutes in about or thereabouts in the last update that I ran, 6.6% optimal lineup rate. The boom score is fine because he's 3,600 as a small forward over on the FanDuel slate. So I get the idea of the appeal, but I just don't think it's actually there. I don't think it really maths out. He's a 0.76 fantasy point per minute player, only a 23-minute projection. Even for 3,600, I think we've got better options to work with.
All righty here. Let me pull this one up again one more time. Ms. Unick, because she had asked a question and I had answered there for a quick second as fast as I possibly could for it. And then any interest in 3K Kem Birch on center? No, we absolutely do not. The minutes are not there. It's a center spot. You cannot miss on center tonight. It is too valuable. And the reason for that is 2 guys up top. And then we've got tons of mid-range options, whether you wanted to play Claxton or, for me, Hassan Whiteside is going to be my boy if he is good to play here. But let's start with Jokic and Embiid. Everybody wants to know, Terry, pick one.
For me, that answer is almost always going to be Jokic, and that doesn't really change today. If we're looking at the DK board, 14.6% optimal, the third most frequently optimal center on the board. Embiid rather drops down to a little less than half that, 6.4% optimal, 12,300 comparable prices. You get a much better boom score probability out of Jokic. You get a better fantasy point per minute rate out of Jokic, although Embiid's closed the gap. It's 1.73 for the season versus 1.61 over the last 3 games, 1.86 for Jokic, a 1.67 for Embiid. There's nothing not to like about Embiid. I just happen to like Jokic a little bit better here. 14% ownership. You could argue that just based on the pure ownership, if everything else is going to be basically equal on the DK slate, that it makes some sense to book some additional shares of Embiid. And I don't see an issue doing that. And I think you can do that while also rostering Jokic aggressively, because Embiid's 6% ownership. If you double that up to 12, that still leaves you a whole hell of a lot of center shares for Jokic.
Agree. It's Jokic for me. It's always going to be Jokic for me. But now we're looking at half the ownership on Embiid. It's weird. The entire day, it's like equal, and then it's fluctuating back and forth. And on Yahoo, there's a $4 difference between them. So at least that, I think we got to talk about, where Embiid gives you $4 savings. That can go a long way on Yahoo, maybe sometimes helping you get multiple studs. But for me, you can play both. It's really hard to do on DK and feel super good about that lineup. You got to play a lot of 4K punts, but a lot of 3K guys. Portland might provide some of those for us. That is TBD depending on Larry Nance and company, but Nikola Jokic going to be the priority for me as well. Somebody said Vooch smash spot earlier there. I want to make sure that I at least give that the attention that it deserves from I'm Real Forever. What do you think about Vooch on this slate? 9,400 on DK, but FanDuel always going to be pulling ownership when he's sub 9K.
Yeah, I like it. If I'm not mistaken, you're taller than you seem like you might be on video, and I think he's going to be going up against somebody around your height playing center tonight.
6'2". Yeah,
you're 6'2". Okay, yeah. On video, you seem quite shorter. I was surprised when I heard that, but I think everybody does. I'm 5'8.5", so I view everybody as tall. Vukovic,
I was going to say it's like in Wedding Crashers. It's like I'm 6'5". But in your arms, I feel 4 foot, or whatever it is. The intro, one of the best intros to a movie of all time, Wedding Crashers, bar none.
Montage.
Why did I just the montage is incredible.
Yeah, but did you hear how I just said montage? I said montage.
Montage. Oh,
yeah, I don't know where that came from. I don't think I've ever said that word in that way before. Glad I could do it in front of everybody. A couple thousand
live on Live Before Lock. Terry saying
why not
weird things. Oh my God. Go ahead. Continue.
Yeah, Vooch looks fantastic given the situation. He's also a 1.23 fantasy point per minute performer under normal circumstances. 1.47 over the last 3 games. 35 minutes a game over the last 3. We saw him just put up 60.6 fantasy FanDuel points in 39 minutes the other day. I see no reason he couldn't go back to that level again here. I think it's a very good spot. One of my more optimal centers on both sides.
All right. We've got from Dominic Richards, $1.99. You guys super chatting up a storm. I love it. Can't tell you thank you enough. Is Al Horford a sneaky play on FD tonight?
Horford's sneaky play a lot of the time, but I hadn't really come across him in looking around the board here yet. 8.8% optimal kind of drops him down below a lot of other plays. If I'm sorting by that puts him 11th overall among power forward. Well, it's a mess of power forward and center eligible guys here. You get Robert Williams from the same team, slightly more optimal at 13.9%, similar ownership. I'd probably go that way. You can get to Claxton at 5,600, only $100 more, much more optimal. Positive leverage on both those guys with bigger positive leverage scores. So I'd probably go that route. I don't think Horford's totally inept. 28.4 minute projection on him certainly could get you there, but not the preference.
All right. And we've got I'm Real Forever. Well, we already brought that one up. Perfect. We're back on track. Let's get to the Hassan Whiteside portion of the program. This is the late swap portion. Everybody drink. If you have Eric referring to late swap 48 times on a show on your bingo card, Zach Collins available to make season debut today. Holy cow. That's just fun to see from a real basketball perspective. People who saw him play with Portland, he was a stud just in terms of limited rotational minutes, but could definitely have some bounce from time to time. Playing for the Spurs now, that muddies up the front court a little bit, but I wasn't really going to be going to the front court there. Hassan Whiteside, though, is way too low owned, in my opinion. One of the best values at center, should he play. Now, I don't know if he's going to play. It's really hard for me to really pinpoint that, but Hassan Whiteside is projected for 37 fantasy points in 30 minutes. If he does, he's 6,400. I get he might have been frustrating, but he's a 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy. How do you feel about Hassan Whiteside if that news breaks late?
Yeah, it's an absolute smash spot right now. I'm glad that the ownership is staying low. I'm glad the news hasn't come out. Now all we need is for him to actually take the court tonight. It'll be a great spot. 16.9% optimal, the second or third most frequently optimal center on FanDuel. 19% on DK, top of the board. Massive leverage scores based on his ridiculously low single-digit ownership. Monster boom score probabilities on both sites. I love the play. I like getting to him frequently. 1.21 fantasy points per minute across all situations this season. 1.29 last year. He's an established, reliable guy. When he gets minutes, he typically produces.
I think that's the best way of putting it. When he's on the floor, he produces, and that's what I want. I don't care about real basketball when it comes to DFS. Eric H, Luka and Trey Mann, or DeJounte and DeSunmu on DK.
Real quick, did you see the quote from Pop? Pop said Zach Collins won't have a minutes restriction as he debuts for the Spurs. Well, probably not. The quote from Pop
he probably won't play that much.
Well, the quote from Pop is, that's a good question. I didn't even ask. I probably should have. I don't think so. He's been playing, 4, 5, 6 G League games? So I think he's fine. Typical Pop answer. Who the hell knows what that means? It's not, honestly, it's not something like you said that it's worth going to, but it's just such a good Pop answer that
yeah, I think it's beautiful. But Luka and Trey Mann, DeJounte and Dosunmu, I like the second one a lot.
Second one. Yep. Yeah, Luka down board based on price. Yeah, DeJounte projects out in all the probability things based on price way, way better.
And one more super chat here. Bat Jones 22, Vlatko Kansar or Usman Garuba or Dave Tinklers. I see what you did there. You're a funny guy. Funny guy. 2 minutes to go, Terry. Center, I guess we kind of talked about the heavy hitters there. Anything specific that you really want to touch on? I like Kevin Love. Nicholas Claxton's fine, not really getting there. Al Horford accidentally. I'm going to have to just swap him to something else because he actually ended up in 10%, and I don't really want to be playing Al Horford today. We'll go to Pokashevsky, and I'll just get out of it later.
It wasn't really popping for me. Kevin Love, I do think, is interesting. Saw some closing minutes the last time out. Put up a nice 43.1 point FanDuel score in a 29-minute game. 1.23 fantasy points per minute performer. If we see the extended minutes, we've got him projected at 25.5. If he climbs out to that 29-30 range, he could do some damage on this slate from the mid-range. 6,900 on both sites. Power forward and center eligible on both sites. He's like around 10%-ish optimal on both with the 25-minute projection, but that would jump up to, probably that 16-17% range or better on if we extended it. Other guys, a lot of these guys come up just in the, mixing caliber, like Jonas Valanciunas. Nothing wrong with playing Joe Val at 8,500 on DK, 7,400 on FanDuel. He projects out fine, just comparably, and based on our probabilities, he's kind of off the board. 5.6% optimal play on DK. Not really worth getting excited about. There's just a lot of better options. So he's not a mistake in terms of he couldn't get there, but he's a mistake in terms of where the probabilities are stacking up on other plays.
That's a great way of putting it. And that takes us up to lock. Terry McBride. Great analysis as always. Once again, I can't say thank you enough for everybody tuning in, but we're not going anywhere. We have another half hour. So we're going to be talking a little bit of Yahoo. We could refer to some ownership. I'm going to put on some games so that we can sweat them live. It is the freaking weekend, baby. I'm about to have me some fun singing that shoot, shoot. You know that song, Terry?
I don't know that song. Or at least I didn't get, or maybe that wasn't enough. You gave me like a half a
hot
beat.
And fresh out the kitchen. Mama rolling that body, cut it. Come on. Oh, I got to just bring up the movie. Are you excited for this new show?
Man, listen to punk rock.
Oh,
punk rock and Creedence and some. Yeah. It's a weird mix, but yeah, that one wasn't on my radar.
I love it here. Friday post-lock party, y'all. Yeah, maybe I should get a whiskey delivered to me or something. That would be nice.
Oh man!
Except for my
go fetch me a beer, buddy.
I don't think my wife would be down with me just being like, go get me a drink. I don't think we're at that point of our marriage yet. Maybe soon. I don't know. It depends. But guys, I'm excited to talk a little Yahoo, mainly because I think it is truly the best point per dollar site. Hey, how about that? We're just going to cross term everything. Best point per dollar site that you can possibly find in the industry. We got nearly 500 people in that Slate Starter exclusive. I'm looking forward to playing in this tonight. So it's basically just zero rake today. $10, $500, $5,000 entry fee, complete flat rake. Hopefully we can get some of you guys a free sub or 2 or 3 months. If you take it down, Brandon Goodwin is 47.4% in that lineup. He's the only guy from the early games, mainly because I'm on these shows playing 3 sites. And, I want to make sure I can give you all the devout attention here. But Brandon Goodwin at $10 was such a smash at the guard position. No doubt about it. But hopefully you guys were able to jump in that contest. Sent $5 to tell everyone what they already know. I don't even know what that means, but I don't know what's happening. I just know that Yahoo is the best site you can play on, and that's why we're going to talk in here. The guard position there was fascinating because Luka Doncic at the top end there, he's an expensive pay up there. When you look at Jokic at $57 and Embiid at $53, I just have a higher raw projection. He doesn't see that big of a bump with Kristaps Porzingis off the floor this entire season, but there's no doubt about it. The ceiling has been there. But you have Kyrie Irving at $36, and I think that is rightfully getting a massive amount of ownership compared to Luka. How do you look at the top end of the guard board on Yahoo, Terry?
Yeah, that's an interesting comparison point, right? Just looking at our boom score probabilities, Kyrie topping the board at the guard position by a lot, by 11 percentage points, 51.05% boom score probability. Really nice mark there for the 3,600. And that's more of like a salary, a points per dollar kind of a metric. He's definitely justifiable at that 50% ownership mark. I'd be comfortable rostering him there if I was entering a lot of lineups. I think he'd probably be in my lineup if I was only entering one. That's just too good a price to pass up for what we now expect from Kyrie in the situation. And Luka at 53 is 19% boom score probability, only 4.6% ownership. That's what's appealing about Luka in that situation, right? Anytime I can get to a Luka Doncic, a guy projected for 50 points in the median at 5% ownership, I'm happy to do it, but it's not rating out as one of our most probable spots to go through to a necessary stealing score for that price, coming in, 2/3 again as expensive as Irving.
I completely forgot that was R. Kelly. He definitely got canceled. He is a terrible human being. We probably shouldn't sing R. Kelly going forward. Like I won. But it's just one of those things that, I was going to say you won life.
By virtue of not knowing
if you haven't seen the Dave Chappelle bit on R. Kelly, it is beyond. Oh man, it's next level. Also, didn't Dave Chappelle? Everybody's getting canceled. I don't know who's not getting canceled. Whoopi Goldberg's getting canceled. I don't understand.
Chappelle was like non-canceled, but bitter that he wasn't canceled almost, I think. Like he structured
That's probably a good way of looking at it.
Yeah, he had a 3 special arc on Netflix that was all about being canceled by the transgender community, and he kind of wasn't. He made some clunky points. He made some interesting points. I don't think he actually hates anybody based on what he was saying. I think a lot of people didn't watch the show and then reacted to news and all of that. But I don't think Dave Chappelle necessarily has been canceled, fortunately, because he's a really funny guy.
Yeah.
But R. Kelly probably appropriately canceled.
Yeah, I love Dave Chappelle. I mean, Chappelle's show is like high school. That was the show of high school. It was just beyond Chappelle's show. And we get to Terry singing. Everybody hit the like button just because. I
just sang a bar of the Chappelle show.
No. You're not getting off the hook that easily. I'm counting to 20. And you're going to sing a good 20 seconds worth of content for the people. 20 seconds. It ain't me. I want some credence. It is time. It's time, baby. You can sing your favorites. You gotta really put the people in the Friday mood. Everybody's watching this show. They're pre-gaming. They're putting their DFS lineups together. They're getting ready to go out on the town, especially if they're out here out west, where it's only 4:05 p.m., 7:05 p.m. You might need to start making moves pretty soon here, but don't forget to be late swapping all the time, everybody. Oh, Holy Night would be epic. I agree. I would totally tune into Terry singing Oh, Holy Night. Like Cartman, too, doing the impression of Cartman singing Oh, Holy Night.
That would probably be a better rendition of Oh Holy Night if I was doing that than if I was using my actual singing voice. So maybe I'll be up for that.
Do a duet. No, we can't do a duet because over Zoom, it's impossible to, there's a little bit of a lag. You can't perfectly time it up because I'll hear the music and then there's that slight little tick where we can't perfectly be on together.
We could do a round, we could do a singing. I'm going to cancel these couple people here in the chat real quick. We could definitely do a round. Guys, we know what Lex Go Brandon means, and we're not political in our chat here. We do not have politics in the chat, so we're going to just delete those comments. Stupid to put them in. Anywho, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, we could do a round. We could have you start row your boat. I could count to 5 and then I can start row your boat, and it's one of those. But otherwise, yeah, it's a little tough to do a duet.
Hamadou Diallo, only 2.5%. Oh yeah, no, Savoca is the actual singer of the group. If you needed somebody to actually sing, we go to Savoca. But this is karaoke season where we don't actually know how to sing. We just do it anyway.
Right. Yeah. No, this is not going to be a good performance. I will do it because it's been a command performance apparently by a great majority of our viewers. Although my viewer count just dropped from 1,800 to 3. Oh, now it's back up to 1,800. All right. That was a weird little glitch as I was talking about the viewer count. Very strange.
Rest of the guard position, we talked about Goodwin. I think he makes a lot of sense. Obviously, he locked. We have 3 games that locked here: Cleveland, Charlotte, Boston, Detroit, and Chicago, Indiana. In the words of Rinpack, everybody gets their bread. Everybody eats against Indiana. So I'm looking forward to pulling that game up. Is there one game here that you're going to pull up and we're going to kind of watch live here together?
Let's see what I have. The Cavs and Hornets on NBA TV here. That was the
Let's
one
get that going.
I was flipping through. I was just looking for the first one that popped up with the word NBA in it.
Love it. All right. Rest of the guard position, though, here on Yahoo to kind of round out that position. Later in the evening, I guess I can just refer to my lineup that I have in the $10 and kind of go from there. Kyrie Irving, obviously, I don't want to play Trey Mann. I'm planning on getting off of this dude. He was kind of in the built shell lineup, and I'll edit and get out of him a little bit later. I just have so much exposure to late games, and we have Embiid and Jokic. I can actually viably get them into a lineup together over on Yahoo today. I didn't think that was going to be possible, but now I think we might get some news where we can go to some Portland pieces on the cheap with no Powell and no Covington on the basketball team. So that should be helpful. So long as you have no Larry Nance, I do not want to have to deal with that situation, but we shall see how it kind of comes a little bit later. Anything else that really sticks out to you on at the guard position, Terry?
Just scrolling for some value. Desumu with $19 was kind of interesting, but I think that game started already. I'm bad at parsing which one of these games have already started and which ones have not. I'm just looking down here. $37 for Freddie VanVleet, who we haven't really talked about on any of these different slates, and only 1.4% owned. Just as a random flyer to throw a few extra shares at would have been kind of interesting for me. Nobody else really popping in terms of like boom score probability versus their ownership. I think a lot of the guys are coming up fairly appropriately owned. We talked about the star position. LaMelo's game already locked. He was kind of interesting there. Yeah, I think that covers most of the board here.
I think we have a fantastic song recommendation. And by all people, by Butthole Jenkins, maybe sing some Shaggy, It Wasn't Me. I think that is the absolute winner. You have to know that song.
Of course I know that song.
All right, guys, smash the like button. Get Terry McBride to sing a little Shaggy. You just have to sing the chorus. I don't know if that's even 20 seconds. I doubt it is, but you have to sing the chorus of the guy, not the Shaggy part, because it's like, I just want the honey came in and she caught me red-handed part of Shaggy, It Wasn't Me. That's what I want. Does that sound fair?
Fair is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence, but I'll do it.
I'm going to clap along. I'm really excited for this portion. Don't go anywhere. That is going to happen in 15 minutes. We'll call it at 4:25 here. Looking at the forward position over on Yahoo, I thought there were some interesting, tough decisions to be made, mainly because you have spend ups in DeMar DeRozan. Javonte Green vaulted up the board for me. He's $10 flat. I said on Yahoo, where it's a $200 cap, these $10 players that are just 5% of your entire cap go a long way in allowing you to pay up for guys. But with DeRozan at 39 and Javonte at 10, then you had Chetty, who is super chalky, and now he's less chalky at 15. Kessler Edwards is at $11. So that's closer to playable for me on that side, as opposed to on DraftKings, where I just don't really find myself getting there. Torrey Craig was $11. That already locked. Darius Baisley's coming up later. So many high end and then super cheap options to be looking at Yahoo. Who are some of your favorites, Terry?
Yeah, a lot of that group, we talked about how there's just so much value on, I think it was DK that we were talking about at the time at the forward spot, but that really carries over to this Yahoo slate. You've got, by boom score probability, we've got DeMar DeRozan and Jason Tatum up at the top of the board, and both of those guys arguably under-owned. DeMar DeRozan, 32% owned. Tatum, 22.47% boom score probability, only owned 13% of the time. That was kind of an interesting spot for 41 as a spend-up option who's not an extreme spend-up option like some of the other stars. It's a price to pay for Tatum, but I think he could push through that. And then it was all about the value plays. The next four guys on the board, 15, 15, 10, and 10. And that was Osman, Baisley, Williams, and Green, who we've talked through significantly on this slate. Any one of those guys just buys you so much ability at the other spots to rotate through a bunch of very good premium players. You can scroll down the board more. We talked about Al Horford and his like middling value being appropriately priced on the other sites. At $19, I think he's got a little bit of upside at 5% ownership on the Yahoo slate here. Going down, looking at Spurs, Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, even for 21, you could argue is a little bit fairly priced there. So there's some interesting pieces, but primarily it's about the couple pay up options and then those extreme value plays, I think, at forward on Yahoo.
I love it. Javonte Green bucket, end the slate. Just end the slate, everybody. There it is. Mikey Cock. I just had to say that name because that's his actual name in the chat. Why do I feel like Eric has taken some serious cheap shots to the back or stomach in high school? A lot of body slams, I'm assuming. Well, one, no. But two, I did get cheap shotted a lot in basketball because nobody wants to see somebody who's as nice as me put up 20 on you. That's just not a whole lot of fun. I could get a bucket. So that would probably be what it was.
I mean,
And maybe it's because
you're bigger than everybody thinks.
I'm 6'2". I was going to say, I met Spags right before he took off. And obviously we hit it off, and it was sad because it was the pandemic. So we never really got to know each other. And then it started to be a little bit more, hey, you can go out in Los Angeles, where it was really, really tight quarantine out here for everybody. And he was just moving to Philadelphia, and we met each other, and both of us thought the other guy was like legitimately 5'8", 5'9", doing shows together. And we're looking like eye to eye. He's like 6'1", 6'2", I'm 6'2". And it's like, we are the same height. And he's just like, it is shocking to run into somebody in real life when you're actually a lot bigger. I mean, I'm a little over 200, 6'2", and I just don't look it apparently.
Yeah, no, it's I guess not. But that Spags is another one. I've done a bunch of shows over time with Spags, and seen him obviously on even more than that. I had no idea he was that tall.
Yeah, it's shocking. Yeah. I'm not going to even put it lightly, but I think he would also say on the flip side, shocking that, I'm not 5'4". I think that's what he was expecting. Maybe it's my lovely little high pitched voice that I have. Something like that.
What is now?
I don't know. That was awful. Torrey Craig,
$11. The entire company. I'm 5'8", like I said, 5'8", 5'9". Drink y'all under the table.
Jason Tatum was a guy in tournaments. I guess we didn't even really talk about him that much, but I liked him. I don't know how you don't like him.
Are you watching Tyler? I thought Tyler was making out with somebody in that chair. That's his dog.
Oh, his dog is giving him a lap dance. We have R. Kelly and Bestiality on the Yahoo 30-minute extra portion. Stay tuned every single time, everybody, and hang out. Makes you look small. Eric looks full. Spags has bad posture. These are some very enlightening comments. I thought Spags was maybe 5'8". That's exactly what I thought too. The man's legitimately 6'1". He's legitimately over 6 feet tall. It is bonkers. Happy birthday, Eric McPherson. Is there cake? I'm only 5'9". EMAC 2024. It's okay. We can get you a platform, and then we'll get you a platform. How does that sound?
Ooh, I see what you did there.
I liked it. I know EMAC liked it too. Anything else for you at the forward position over on Yahoo? I thought it was a really fun slate to be building lineups. Again, you had a $41 Jason Tatum at the top end. So many guys at the top end, so many at the bottom. And then Chetty, $15. I just saw nobody getting any rostership in this mid-range. I guess Bogdanovich would be the closest for me at $20. But with Donovan Mitchell back, I just don't want to go there.
Yeah, it's not the most appealing spot, but like you said, for $20 with under 10% ownership, it's fine to use at least as a mix and match guy if you're entering a bunch of lineups. And there's a lot of guys like that on this slate. Like as I was going down the board, I didn't want to just keep reading off names to everybody, but like the Spurs forwards with Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, both at reasonable prices. I think you could get to either one of those guys. You can go down the board and look at like a Josh Hart. We didn't really talk about in a lot of situations, $25. I think he's playing. I don't remember him being scratched. I think there are a lot of different options that you can mix and match into these lineups for very, very fair ownership, given the reasonable prices that they land in as you're building Yahoo lineups. And then that just accesses a bunch of the star level players for you. It's all about the value that you can get in some of these lineup builds today.
Josh Hart is questionable. Hassan Whiteside available to play. Oh. Nice. Jordan Clarkson ruled out. I'm happy it came after lock. I'm sad that it came out at 7:16 p.m. there on the East Coast. But it gives us a lot to talk about here at the center position because I was kind of waiting for this. I said I liked Hassan Whiteside. I have 55% of him over on DK. On FanDuel, I have 30%. I think people are going to kind of get there. I don't know if I want to be adding to that allotment. I was, playing 40 lineups kind of on each and playing a little bit more DK volume, but like just kind of playing my normal allotment of Friday lineups. Try not to go too crazy on Friday so I can not have to be by my phone the entire time. But I'm looking at Hassan Whiteside as a guy that just makes a ton of sense on this slate. I see no way around it. You need to be rostering him, I think, on sites where you can play one of him and Embiid, or for me, one of him and Jokic. It just makes way too much sense. Terry, what do you plan to do with Hassan Whiteside? Oh, and Jordan Clarkson ruled out. That's an useful little tidbit as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Whiteside, like we talked about earlier, just was a big part of my plans already. That just kind of confirms and makes me feel happy that he's in 27 of my 50 lineups. So I actually maybe wish that was a little bit more, but like you said, I don't know that I want to go out of my way to increase that amount because I think the other shares right now are going to Jokic, to Vooch. It's not like I've got a lot of other value guys baked into that spot that I'm kind of aggressively looking to swap up to Hassan Whiteside from like a Claxton or like a Blake Griffin at center. I don't think I have many shares of those anyway, so I'll probably leave it alone, but I'm very, very happy that he's in because he was one of my top plays of the day and somebody that I was really hoping would be playing on this slate. So yeah, it's an exciting spot. I hope the field doesn't get there enough.
All right, Cactus Amos asks a question. Can you guys talk about the late games? Yeah, we can talk about the late slate. There's actually a late slate over on Yahoo, which makes it super applicable as well. But we just got this Utah news, and I think that that's going to matter big time. I didn't see, did it get packaged with any Rudy Gay news? No, it did not.
But, okay.
That's a bummer because, again, Rudy Gay would matter for me especially like in a late slate. Royce O'Neal is the worst, and I mean the worst roster of all time. But I got to be thinking maybe Elijah Mitchell or, maybe Elijah Hughes can play some minutes there, but it's pretty much been in spots like this. Royce O'Neal would play like 38 minutes, 40 minutes if there was no Rudy Gay. Eric Pascal is going to fall out of the rotation to the wayside. I think he might play some backup five still. I think he actually has to play some backup five still. We'll kind of see what that rotation is. But Brooklyn, when Nick Claxton's off the floor, they're going to be small by default as well. Nick Claxton, 6'11". I was looking through that. Blake Griffin, bigger dude, but like backup five. He's basically a glorified power forward. So looking at those late games, you got that. Josh Hart is still questionable. I haven't seen any word on him yet. So we're waiting on that news. That is going to matter mucho for the late slate as well. So that's a piece of news. We have so much news waiting in the Portland game, both the starting lineup, what's going to happen with Larry Nance. CJ Ellaby's off the injury report, so he should be good to go. But with no Covington and no Powell there's lots of minutes. And then Philly and Dallas have Joel Embiid and Luka Doncic in them. So really great late slate to be playing over on Yahoo. Anything you really want to touch on that I didn't talk about, Terry?
I think that was a pretty dynamite recap of things that we can expect coming up. Just looking through some of those center shares on the Yahoo slate, I think with a 29.4% boom score probability, even though he costs $57, I assume the most expensive player at any position on the slate. I think Nikola Jokic is pretty interesting for only 6.4% ownership. Anytime I can get to that kind of a player and there's plenty of value to be able to get there today, I'm going to be excited about getting there when he's under 10% owned. So that intrigues me. Embiid was also under 10% owned on the slate. Whiteside is projected low owned right now. That'll probably climb given the news as people make some swaps. But I think it's a very interesting position, but I'd be focused on like Whiteside and then those two stars, kind of like what we talked about on the other sites. Vooch also in play, of course, from the top of the board at a $36 price. It's pretty fair.
We got Eric Traub and Jordan L saying, I would have guessed 5'8", 5'10" for Spags. Yeah, legitimately, I'm shocked. Over 6 foot. Just saying. It's a fact. Given fact. Guitar Man Forever's Ends was in Sufu the other day. You can't believe you moved away from such a beautiful city. Did you notice the snow? Oh, hello. Love getting news when we're on this show. Aaron Gordon now downgraded to questionable. I'm going to take him out of my lineups. He was not on the injury report to my knowledge. No, he was not. Aaron Gordon is not playing tonight. That is fascinating. I doubt there's a ton of value that emerges because Jokic being in is such an important part of that. But at least Will Barton has to be a conversation piece now. He is on the DraftKings slate, 6K. I already liked him. I've liked him on pretty much every slate in the last however long, but played 35 minutes against Utah in a close loss there without Jokic, of course. But looking at him being a piece that I want to get to a little bit more, I don't think we need to punt with Jeff Green. I don't think we need to play J. Michael Green or Zeke Naji, but what does that news do for you, Terry?
Yeah, agree with you on those guys. I think we already had a lot of value that was better value and more established and just more, on less shaky ground than those guys. Barton would be the guy that kind of does pop to a little bit of intrigue here. We had him projected 32.8 minutes, obviously a little bit more to do taking Gordon out of the mix here. So the minutes might tick up minorly, but I think a lot of the other marks or the metrics that we go by here are going to tick up. And we already had him at a 13.1% optimal rate on the DK slate and only owned 9.5% of the time. So he was positively leveraged already at 6,000 shooting guard eligible on the DK slate. Like him a little bit less shooting guard, small forward, 6,500 on FanDuel, but I think he's in play over there as well, but definitely a strong play on the DK slate now.
Udoka Azubuike is going to be starting instead of Hassan Whiteside. It is not fun. Let's see what News Guide just sent me. Same thing. Azubuike starting. Thank you, News Guide. Always keeping everybody apprised of everything going on shows. Appreciate him very much. Rudy Gay remains questionable, so there's that. But Azubuike starting, not Hassan Whiteside. I'm upset. That's not great. But here's the thing. If it's still going to be a center split, I don't see Azubuike. I mean, he played 22 minutes, I believe it was last time. I guess I should look at my computer rather than mope about it. That makes sense. Let's pull this up because this is gotten weird.
22 minutes last time out. That's a pain in the ass.
I mean, here's the thing. Whiteside, if I just go 24-24, Whiteside still projects out well, but he does not project out close to what I need to on this slate want to get to him with Jokic and Embiid up top.
Yeah, that's the problem because it's not like low fives. It's not mid fours Whiteside in terms of salary. It's 6,400 on both sites. So he's kind of priced around where you do want that 30-minute game. We had him projected at 29.6 minutes. 16.9% optimal was making him look like the top center play on the board. But if we peel that back to 24 minutes, like you said, that's going to knock his median projection down from the 37-point range to the 32-ish point range, somewhere around there, 30-point range. Might not be enough. It's a lot more concerning than the good news you gave me about him a minute ago. Can we go back to that reality?
It's almost like Vooch up against, let's go back to that reality. That'd be fun. Vooch. It's almost like having a 6'5" guy guard Nikola Vucevic, one of the most polished offensive centers, was going to go poorly. 8,700 on FanDuel. I got to some. I didn't play a lot on DK mainly because I like so much Embiid and Jokic. Well, 18.2 FanDuel points in 7 minutes. That is helpful. 11-6 coming off of 30 and 18 yesterday in that overtime loss. Karis LeVert off to a good start, 13.5. That's nice to see because I don't know. Karis LeVert pisses me off all the time.
Me too. And I've got a pretty good chunk of them today, actually. 34 of 50 lineups. So go Karis LeVert.
We're off of Hassan Whiteside now, right? Like that's just not unnecessary.
It's annoying, but yeah, I think so. I think it makes sense. I just don't know where I'm going to go with those shares now.
Yeah, love the Utah news. Bring it.
What time is that game, Lock?
Azubuike. I mean, why would you have Azubuike 100%? That makes no sense. Unless you're playing one lineup and you're just like, oh, I think that a guy playing 22 minutes is going to smash the slate with a position that has so much upside. But I don't know what you want to say. I don't want to play him.
Somebody maybe being cute saying they had him 100% because they only played one lineup and for some reason was in it. I guess that could be the case.
It's okay. It happens. Come on, Pacers. This is
a strange choice when it was made, but it seems like it might have a possibility of working out, I guess, if he gets minutes. But
Jared Allen with the revenge.
At least that game doesn't lock till 9, so we've got a little bit of time. What's left around that, though?
I don't know, but Sumo has 6 assists already. How insane is this guy?
Wow. He ruined the Top Shot challenge yesterday by racking up assists. He was like he's a $500 one moment guy, and you needed him to knock out the challenge, and he didn't do anybody any favors. Looks like he's gonna have another nice night. What is around on the board to swap out of now on Whiteside? Assume that we can't make this Atlanta-Toronto game, those of us who are on shows, and we'll take that off the board as well. So working with the games from the 8:30 lock back, who are we looking at in terms of getting away from Whiteside? Where can we go?
Yeah, with John Collins available to play, we don't have to even really think about centers there. I think you could play any of the Toronto guys and be fine. So just to kind of recap that game, nothing's going to change for me. I'm not going to try to get to more or less of anything there. I don't think I even need to be pivoting out of it. I'm looking at Yahoo at making way. I think $7 should be easy to find for me. I think a Nurkic for $7 more makes a lot of sense. Over on Yahoo might be one of the spots where he's a little bit more popular at 22.6%. I think maybe some of the people who are taking the shots I was on Whiteside, kind of going that direction, are going to find themselves getting to away from Whiteside. Let me pull up center here. 6,400, I know, is his number there. I'm probably going to have to do a lot of renegotiating with lineups. 8,200 is a lot more over on DK there. 17.5%, but still projects out over 40 points for me. 41 points here for Awesemo. Perfect projection I'm looking at for that 32 minutes. Going to just be offensive catalyst here along with CJ McCollum and Anthony Simons in love with still. But looking at other centers, there's nobody in that range right now. We have Kevin Love that just locked. I don't want to play John Collins. Capella, I don't want to play with Collins in $300 less. It's just kind of a no man's land. So you're going to have to renegotiate a lot of things to get off Whiteside. But I think the quick and easy thing to do is swap to a ton of Nicholas Claxton and kind of figure it out from there.
That's kind of what I was just looking at. Yeah, $5,600 Nicholas Claxton. Like I said, when we were talking about him, doesn't really excite me. And now He was 13% optimal before against 6.9% ownership, which at least made him a positive leverage play. These are FanDuel numbers just because that's where my brain's at right now. Given the fact that now that's probably where most of the field that had Whiteside in lineups is going to immediately land because it's the easy just auto swap to make, that ownership is going to go up and that's going to wipe out that leverage. So it's definitely on the board. It's the easiest pivot to make, but I think I am going to at least invest a little bit of time seeing, how can I get to Nurk at 76? How can I get to Joval at 74? Some of these guys that were previously off the board because they're only single digit optimal rates are going to climb a little bit now at that spot. So maybe there's something to be done there where I'm sacrificing in other spots, but making it up. But yeah, that's like a ghost town of a price. It's 6,400 and there's nobody else in that exact tier of price that makes it easy here.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of scenario. It's going to be a lot of renegotiating the rest of your lineups. We've got 2 minutes left to go. Thank you so much to Yahoo for their sponsorship of the show. Love when we get a lot of news to talk about how it applies to every single slate. Ryan Nelson, I did not miss your super chat. He wants to go over my Yahoo single entry lineup. You know what? Screw it. I'll just read it because this is what it is right now. I think I'm going to be changing out of O'Neal and Trey Mann because I never wanted to play them anyway. I just knew they were in the late session of games and I'll kind of work out some salary. But Goodwin, Irving, Mann, Williams, Edwards, O'Neal, Embiid, and Jokic, it's going to change from there. I can promise you that because it's all late slate plays because I'm on this show. Just played Brandon Goodwin and moved on with my day. Hopefully somebody that I know can take down that tournament. It would be awesome to see one of you win those 3 free months of Awesemo Plus Platinum plus the $1,000. Oh, and if you want to win anyway, and you haven't yet signed up at Yahoo, deposit $10 or more, play in any paid contest and get that 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Terry, we've reached the end of the boarding walk. Time to cash in your ticket and sing 20 seconds here for us. I would love to hear the chorus of It Wasn't Me by Shaggy.
Me. How do you do this? All right, here we go. I got the lyrics up. Honey came in and she caught me red-handed, creeping with the girl next door. Picture this, we were both butt naked, banging on the bathroom floor. How could I forget that I had given her an extra key? All this time she was standing there, she never took her eyes off me. That's it, buddy. Was that 20 seconds?
Terry signing us off here on the Live Before Lock show. That could not. Oh my God, that could not have been better. Go give him a follow at DigitalB21. He does so much for us here at Awesemo. We always appreciate him. Obviously filling in, does a phenomenal job. Fantastic NBA, NFL, MLB player in those streets. Seen him at the top of leaderboards here or there. No doubt about it because he's pretty good at it. But Terry, look at that. 10 out of 10. Terry the GOAT Gold. Chad is going nuts for Terry. Look at this. You want to join a band?
Anything. Join a band.
Terry's definitely going in the garage and slapping the bass at the end of this. Slapping the bass. Any final words for the people? Any final words for the people, my friend?
Anything I can say would be a disappointment after that.
Smash the like button, smash the subscribe button, smash the notification bell as we get out of here. Thank you so much to Tyler Zander over there down in Texas where it's snowing for some reason. What a weird place to be. I don't know what's up or down anymore, but stay safe out there, guys. Have a blast. Thank you so much to him. Terry, great work. I'm Eric Lindquist. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here next week.